This is Audible.
Echo Burning by Lee Child. Read by Jeff Harding. There were 3 watchers, 2 men and a boy. They were using telescopes, not field glasses. It was a question of distance. They were almost a mile from their target area, because of the terrain. There was no closer cover. It was low, undulating country, burned cocky by the sun, grass and rock and sandy soil alike. The nearest safe concealment was the broad dip they were in, a bone-dry gulch scraped out 1,000,000 years ago by a different climate, when there had been rain and ferns and rushing rivers. The men lay prone in the dust with the early heat on their backs, their telescopes at their eyes. The boy scuttled around on his knees, fetching water from the cooler, watching for waking rattlesnakes, logging comments in a notebook. They had arrived before first light in a dusty pickup truck, the long way round, across the empty land from the west. They had thrown a dirty tarpaulin over the truck and pegged it down with rocks. They had eased forward to the rim of the dip and settled in, raising their telescopes as the low morning sun dawned to the east behind the red house almost a mile away. This was Friday, their 5th consecutive morning, and they were low on conversation. "Time?" one of the men asked. His voice was nasal, the effect of keeping one eye open and the other eye shut. The boy checked his watch. 6:50, he answered. "Any moment now," the man with the telescope said. The boy opened his book and prepared to make the same notes he had made 4 times before. "Kitchen light on," the man said. The boy wrote it down. 6:50, kitchen light on. The kitchen faced them, looking west away from the morning sun, so it stayed dark even after dawn. "On her own?" the boy asked. "Same as always," the second man said, squinting. "Maid prepares breakfast," the boy wrote. "Target still in bed." The sun rose inch by inch. It jacked itself higher into the sky and pulled the shadows shorter and shorter. The red house had a tall chimney coming out of the kitchen wing like the finger on a sundial. The shadow it made swung and shortened, and the heat on the watcher's shoulders built higher. 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was already hot. By 8, it would be burning. By 9, it would be fearsome. And they were there all day, until dark, when they could slip away unseen. "Bedroom drape's opening," the second man said. "She's up and about." The boy wrote it down. 7:04, bedroom drapes open. "Now listen," the first man said. They heard the well pump kick in, very faintly from almost a mile away, a quiet mechanical click, and then a steady low drone. "She's showering," the man said. The boy wrote it down. 7:06, target starts to shower. The men rested their eyes. Nothing was going to happen while she was in the shower. How could it? They lowered their telescopes and blinked against the brassy sun in their eyes. The well pump clicked off after 6 minutes. The silence sounded louder than the faint noise had. The boy wrote, 7:12, target out of shower. The men raised their telescopes again. "She's dressing, I guess," the first man said. The boy giggled. "Can you see her naked?" The second man was triangulated 20 feet to the south. He had the better view of the back of the house, where her bedroom window was. "You're disgusting," he said. "You know that?" The boy wrote, 7:15, probably dressing. Then 7:20, probably downstairs, probably eating breakfast. "She'll go back up, clean her teeth," he said. The man on the left shifted on his elbows. "For sure," he said. "Prissy little thing like that." "She's closing her drapes again," the man on the right said. It was standard practice in the west of Texas, in the summer, especially if your bedroom faced south, like this one did, unless you wanted to sleep the next night in a room hotter than the pizza oven. "Stand by," the man said. "Buck gets 10, she goes out to the barn now." It was a wager that nobody took, because so far, 4 times out of 4, she had done exactly that, and watchers are paid to notice patterns. "Kitchen door's open," the boy wrote. 7:27, kitchen door opens. "Here she comes." She came out, dressed in a blue gingham dress which reached to her knees and left her shoulders bare. Her hair was tied back behind her head. It was still damp from the shower.
"What do you call that sort of a dress?" the boy asked.
"Halter," the man on the left said. 7:28. Comes out. Blue halter dress, goes to barn, the boy wrote. She walked across the yard, short, hesitant steps against the uneven ruts in the baked earth, maybe 70 yards. She heaved the barn door open and disappeared in the gloom inside. The boy wrote, 7:29, target in barn.
"How hot is it?" the man on the left asked. "Maybe 100 degrees, the boy said.
"There'll be a storm soon. Heat like this, there has to be."
"Here comes a ride," the man on the right said.
Miles to the south, there was a dust cloud on the road. A vehicle, making slow and steady progress north.
"She's coming back," the man on the right said.
7:32, target comes out of barn, the boy wrote.
"Maid's at the door," the man said.
The target stopped at the kitchen door and took her lunchbox from the maid. It was bright blue plastic with a cartoon picture on the side. She paused for a second. Her skin was pink and damp from the heat. She leaned down to adjust her socks and then trotted out to the gate, through the gate, to the shoulder of the road. The school bus slowed and stopped, and the door opened with a sound the watchers heard clearly over the faint rattle of the idling engine. The chrome handrails flashed once in the sun. The diesel exhaust hung and drifted in the hot, still air. The target heaved her lunchbox onto the step and grasped the bright rails and clambered up after it. The door closed again, and the watchers saw her corn-colored head bobbing along level with the base of the windows. Then the engine noise deepened and the gears caught, and the bus moved away with a new cone of dust kicking up behind it. 7:36, target on bus to school, the boy wrote. The road north was dead straight, and he turned his head and watched the bus all the way until the heat on the horizon broke it up into a shimmering yellow mirage. Then he closed his notebook and secured it with a rubber band. Back at the red house, the maid stepped inside and closed the kitchen door. Nearly a mile away, the watchers lowered their telescopes and turned their collars up for protection from the sun. 7:37, Friday morning. 7:38. 7:39, more than 300 miles to the north and east, Jack Reacher climbed out of his motel room window. 1 minute earlier, he'd been in the bathroom, brushing his teeth. 1 minute before that, he had opened the door of his room to check the morning temperature. He'd left it open, and the closet just inside the entrance passageway was faced with mirrored glass. And there was a shaving mirror in the bathroom on a cantilevered arm, and by a freak of optical chance, he caught sight of 4 men getting out of a car and walking toward the motel office. Pure luck. But a guy as vigilant as Jack Reacher gets lucky more times than the average. The car was a police cruiser. It had a shield on the door, and because of the bright sunlight and the double reflection, he could read it clearly. At the top, it said City Police, and then there was a fancy medallion in the middle with Lubbock, Texas written underneath. All 4 men who got out were in uniform. They had bulky belts with guns and radios and nightsticks and handcuffs. 3 of the men he'd never seen before, but the 4th guy was familiar. The 4th guy was a tall heavyweight with a gelled blonde brush cut above a meaty red face. This morning, the meaty red face was partially obscured by a glinting aluminum splint carefully taped over a shattered nose. His right hand was similarly bound up with a splint and bandages protecting a broken forefinger. The guy had neither injury the night before, and Reacher had no idea the guy was a cop. He just looked like some idiot in a bar. Reacher had gone there because he'd heard the music was good, but it wasn't. So he had backed away from the band and ended up on a bar stool watching ESPN on a muted television fixed high on a wall. The place was crowded and noisy, and he was wedged in a space with a woman on his right and the heavyweight guy with a brush cut on his left. He got bored with the sports and turned round to watch the room. As he turned, he saw how the guy was eating. The guy was wearing a white tank-top shirt, and he was eating chicken wings. The wings were greasy, and the guy was a slob. He was dripping chicken fat off of his chin and off his fingers onto his shirt. There was a dark teardrop shape right between his pecs. It was growing and spreading into an impressive stain. But the best barroom etiquette doesn't let you linger on such a sight, and the guy caught Reacher staring. "Who you looking at?" he said. It was said low and aggressively, but Reacher ignored it. "Who you looking at?" the guy said again. Reacher's experience was they say it once, maybe nothing's going to happen. But they say it twice, then trouble's on the way. Fundamental problem is they take a lack of response as evidence that you're worried, that they're winning. But then they won't let you answer anyway. "You looking at me?" the guy said. "No," Reacher answered. "Don't you be looking at me, boy," the guy said. The way he said boy made Reacher think he was maybe a foreman in a lumber mill or a cotton operation. Whatever muscle work was done around Lubbock. Some kind of a traditional trade passed down through the generations. Certainly the word cop never came to his mind. But then he was relatively new to Texas. "Don't you look at me," the guy said. Reacher turned his head and looked at him. Not really to antagonize the guy, just to size him up. Life is endlessly capable of surprises, so he knew one day he would come face to face with his physical equal, with somebody who might worry him. But he looked and saw this wasn't the day. So he just smiled and looked away again. Then the guy jabbed him with his finger. "I told you not to look at me," he said, and jabbed. It was a meaty forefinger, and it was covered in grease. It left a definite mark on Reacher's shirt. "Don't do that," Reacher said. The guy jabbed again. "Or what?" he said. "You want to make something out of it?" Reacher looked down. Now there were 2 marks. The guy jabbed again. 3 jabs, 3 marks. Reacher clamped his teeth. What with 3 greasy marks on a shirt? He started a slow count to 10. Then the guy jabbed again, before he even reached 8. "You deaf?" Reacher said. "I told you not to do that." "You want to do something about it?" "No," Reacher said. "I really don't. I just want you to stop doing it, is all." The guy smiled. "Then you're a yellow-bellied piece of shit." "Whatever," Reacher said. "Just keep your hands off me." "Or what? What you gonna do?" Reacher restarted his count. 8, 9. "You want to take this outside?" the guy asked. 10. "Touch me again, you'll find out," Reacher said. "I warned you 4 times." The guy paused a second. Then, of course, he went for it again. Reacher caught the finger on the way in and snapped it at the first knuckle, just folded it upward like he was turning a door handle. Then, because he was irritated, he leaned forward and headbutted the guy full in the face. It was a smooth move, well delivered, but it was backed off to maybe a half of what it might have been. No need to put a guy in a coma over 4 grease marks on a shirt. He moved a pace to give the man room to fall, and backed into the woman on his right. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said. The woman nodded vaguely, disoriented by the noise, concentrating on her drink, unaware of what was happening. The big guy thumped silently on the floorboards, and Reacher used the sole of his shoe to roll him half onto his front. Then he nudged him under the chin with his toe to pull his head back and straighten his airway. The recovery position, paramedics call it. Stops you choking while you're out. Then he paid for his drinks and walked back to his motel, and didn't give the guy another thought until he was at the bathroom mirror and saw him out and about in a cop's uniform. Then he thought hard, and as fast as he could. He spent the first second calculating reflected angles and figuring, if I can see him, does that mean he can see me? The answer was yes, of course he can, if he was looking in the right way, which he wasn't yet. He spent the next second mad at himself. He should have picked up the signs. They'd been there. Who else would be poking at a guy built like him except somebody with some kind of protected status? some kind of imagined invulnerability. He should have picked up on it. So, what to do? The guy was a cop on his own turf, and Reacher was an easily recognizable target. Apart from anything else, he still had the 4 grease spots on his shirt and a brand-new bruise on his forehead. There were probably forensics people who could match its shape to the bones in the guy's nose. So what to do? An angry cop bent on revenge could cause trouble, a lot of trouble. A noisy public arrest for sure, maybe some wild gunshots. Definitely some 4-on-1 fun and games in an empty out-of-the-way cell down at the station house, where you can't fight back without multiplying your original legal problem. Then all kinds of difficult questions, because Reacher habitually carried no ID and nothing else at all except his toothbrush and a couple of $1,000 cash in his pants pocket. So he would be regarded as a suspicious character. Almost certainly he'd be charged with attacking a law officer. That was probably a big deal in Texas. All kinds of witnesses would materialize to swear it was malicious and completely unprovoked. He could end up convicted and in the penitentiary easy as anything. He could end up with 7 to 10 in some tough establishment, which was definitely not number 1 on his wish list. So discretion was going to be the better part of valor. He put his toothbrush in his pocket and walked through the room and opened the window, unclipped the screen and dropped it to the ground, climbed out and closed the window and rested the screen back in its frame, and walked away across a vacant lot to the nearest street. Turned right and kept on walking until he was hidden by a low building. He looked for buses. There weren't any. He looked for taxis. Nothing doing. So he stuck out his thumb. He figured he had 10 minutes to find a ride before they finished at the motels and started cruising the streets. 10 minutes, maybe 15 at the outside. Which meant it wasn't going to work. It couldn't work. 7:39 in the morning, the temperature was already over 100 degrees. It was going to be impossible to get a ride at all. In heat like that, no driver on the planet would open their door long enough for him to slide right in, never mind for any long prior discussions about destinations. So finding a getaway in time was going to be impossible. Absolutely impossible. He started planning alternatives because he was so sure of it. But it turned out he was wrong. It turned out his whole day was a series of surprises. There were 3 killers, 2 men and a woman. They were an out-of-state professional crew based in Los Angeles, contactable through an intermediary in Dallas, and a second cutout in Vegas. They'd been in business 10 years, and they were very good at what they did, which was take care of problems anywhere in the Southwest and survive to get paid and do it over again as many times as anybody asked them to. 10 years, and never once a hint of a problem. A good team. Meticulous, inventive, perfectionist. As good as it gets in their strange little world. And perfectly suited to it. They were bland, forgettable, white, anonymous. To see them together, they looked like the branch office of a photocopier company on its way to a sales convention. Not that they were ever seen together, except by their victims. They traveled separately. One always drove and the other 2 flew, always by different routes. The driver was one of the men, because invisibility was their aim, and a woman driving a long distance alone was still slightly more memorable than a man. The car was always rented, always at LAX arrivals, which had the busiest rental counters in the world. It was always a generic family sedan, a mud-colored nothing car. The license and the credit card used to obtain it were always real, properly issued in a distant state to a person who had never existed. The driver would wait on the sidewalk and then line up when a busy flight was spilling out into baggage claim, when he would be just one face among 100. He was small and dark and forgettable, and had a rolling duffel and a carry-on and a harassed expression, same as everybody else. He did the paperwork at the counter and rode the bus to the rental compound and found his allotted car. He dumped his bags in the trunk, waited at the exit check, and drove out into the glare. He spent 40 minutes on the freeways, driving a wide, aimless circle around the whole of the metropolitan area, making sure he wasn't followed. Then he ducked off into West Hollywood and stopped at a lock-up garage in an alley behind a lingerie salon. He left the motor running and opened the garage door and opened the trunk and swapped his rolling duffel and his carry-on for 2 big valises made of thick black nylon. One of them was very heavy. The heavy valise was the reason he was driving, not flying. It contained things best kept away from airport scanners. He closed up the garage and rolled east on Santa Monica Boulevard and turned south on 101 and hooked east again on 10. Squirmed in his seat and settled in for the 2-day drive all the way out to Texas. He wasn't a smoker, but he lit numerous cigarettes and held them between his fingers and flicked ash on the carpets, on the dash, on the wheel. He let the cigarettes burn out and crush the butts in the ashtray. That way, the rental company would have to vacuum the car very thoroughly and spray it with air freshener and wipe down the vinyl with detailing fluid. That would eliminate every trace of him later, including his fingerprints. The second man was on the move, too. He was taller and heavier and fairer, but there was nothing memorable about him. He joined the end of the workday crush at LAX and bought a ticket to Atlanta. When he got there, he swapped his wallet for one of the 5 spares in his carry-on, and a completely different man bought another ticket for Dallas-Fort Worth. The woman traveled a day later. That was her privilege, because she was the team leader. She was closing in on middle age, medium-sized, medium blonde. Nothing at all special about her except she killed people for a living. She left her car in the LAX long-term parking, which wasn't dangerous because her car was registered to a Pasadena infant who had died of the measles 30 years previously. She rode the shuttle bus to the terminal and used a forged MasterCard to buy her ticket and a genuine New York driver's license for photo ID at the gate. She boarded her plane at about the time the driver was starting his second day on the road. After his second stop for gas on the first day, he had made a detour into the New Mexico hills and found a quiet, dusty shoulder where he squatted in the cool, thin air and changed the car's California plates for Arizona plates, which he took from the heavier valise. He wound his way back to the highway and drove another hour, then pulled off the road and found a motel. He paid cash, used a Tucson address, and let the desk clerk copy the Arizona plate number onto the registration form. He slept 6 hours with the room air on low and was back on the road early, made it to Dallas-Fort Worth at the end of the second day, and parked in the airport long-term lot. Took his valises with him and used the shuttle bus to departures. Took the moving stairs straight down to arrivals and lined up at the Hertz counter. Hertz, because they rent Fords, and he needed a Crown Victoria. He did the paperwork with Illinois ID, rode the bus to the Hertz lot and found his car. It was the Plain Jane Crown Vic in steel blue metallic, neither light nor dark. He was happy with it. He heaved his bags into the trunk and drove to a motel near the new ballpark on the road from Fort Worth to Dallas. Checked in with the same Illinois ID, ate, and slept a few hours. He woke early and met his 2 partners in the fierce morning heat outside the motel at exactly the same moment Jack Reacher first stuck out his thumb, more than 400 miles away in Lubbock. Second surprise after the cop showing up was he got a ride within 3 minutes. He wasn't even sweating yet. His shirt was still dry. Third surprise was the driver who stopped for him was a woman. Fourth, and biggest surprise of all, was the direction their subsequent conversation took. He'd been hitching rides for the best part of 25 years, in more countries than he could easily recall, and 3 minutes was about the shortest interval between sticking out his thumb and climbing into a car he could remember. As a mode of transportation, hitching rides was dying out. That was his conclusion based on a lot of experience. Commercial drivers had insurance problems with it, and private citizens were getting worried about it, because who knew what kind of a psycho you were? And in Reacher's case, it was worse than the average, especially right then. He wasn't some dapper little guy, neat and inoffensive. He was a giant, 6'5", heavily built, close to 250 pounds. Up close, he was usually scruffy, usually unshaven, and his hair was usually a mess. People worried about him. They stayed away from him. and now he had the fresh new bruise on his forehead, which was why he was surprised about the 3 minutes, and why he was surprised about the woman driver. There's usually a pecking order, based on some kind of subconscious assessment of risk. Top of the list, a young girl will get a ride from an older man, easiest of all, because where's the threat in that? Although now, with some of the young girls turning into scam artists, wanting $100 in exchange for dropping fake molestation claims, even that's getting harder. And whatever, right down there at the bottom of the list is a big scruffy guy getting a ride from a neat slender woman in an expensive coupe. But it happened. Within 3 minutes. He was hurrying south and west of the motel strip, stunned by the heat, hard to see in the jagged morning shadows, his left thumb jammed out urgently, when she pulled over at his side with the wet hiss of wide tires on hot pavement. It was a big white car, and the sun on the hood dazzled him. He turned blindly, and she buzzed her far window down. 7:42 Friday morning. "Where to?" she called, like she was a cab driver, not a private citizen. "Anywhere," he said. He regretted it instantly. It was a dumb thing to say, because to have no specific destination usually makes things worse. They think you're some kind of an aimless drifter, which makes them suspicious, and makes them worried they might never get rid of you. Makes them worried you'll want to ride all the way home with them. But this woman just nodded. "Okay," she said. "I'm headed down past Picos." He paused a beat, surprised. Her head was ducked down, her face tilted up, looking out at him through the window. "Great," he said. He stepped off the curb and opened the door and slid inside. The interior was freezing cold. She had the air roaring on maximum, and the seat was leather, and it felt like a block of ice. She buzzed the window up again with the button on her side as he swung the door shut behind him. "Thanks," he said. "You don't know how much I appreciate this." She said nothing, just made some kind of all-purpose dismissive gesture away from him as she craned to look over her shoulder at the traffic stream behind her. People have their reasons for giving rides, all of them different. Maybe they hitched a lot when they were younger, and now they're settled and comfortable, and they want to put back what they took out. Like a circular thing. Maybe they have charitable natures. Or maybe they're just lonely and want a little conversation. But if this woman wanted conversation, she was in no kind of a hurry to get it started. She just waited for a couple of trucks to labor past and pulled out behind them without a word. Reacher glanced around inside the car. It was a Cadillac, 2 doors, but as long as a boat and very fancy. Maybe a couple of years old, but as clean as a whistle. The leather was the color of old bones, and the glass was tinted like an empty bottle of French wine. There was a pocketbook and a small briefcase thrown on the back seat. The pocketbook was anonymous and black, maybe plastic. The briefcase was made from weathered cowhide, the sort of thing that already looks old when you buy it. It was zipped open, and there was a lot of folded paper stuffed in it, the sort of thing you see in a lawyer's office. "Move the seat back if you want," the woman said. "Give yourself room." "Thanks," he said again. He found switches on the door shaped like seat cushions. He fiddled with them, and quiet motors eased him rearward and reclined his backrest. Then he lowered the seat to make himself inconspicuous from outside. The motors whirred. It was like being in a dentist's chair. "That looks better," she said. "More comfortable for you." Her own chair was tight up to the wheel because she was small. He twisted in his seat so he could look her over without staring straight at her. She was short and slim, dark-skinned, fine-boned. Altogether, a small person. Maybe 100 pounds, maybe 30 years old. Long, black, wavy hair, dark eyes, small white teeth visible behind a tense half-smile. Mexican, he guessed, but not the type of Mexican who swims the Rio Grande looking for a better life. This woman's ancestors had enjoyed a better life for hundreds of years. That was pretty clear. It was in her genes. She looked like some kind of Aztec royalty. She was wearing a simple cotton dress printed with a pale pattern. Not much to it, but it looked expensive. It was sleeveless and finished just above her knees. Her arms and legs were dark and smooth, like they'd been polished.
"So, where are you headed?"
she asked. Then she paused and smiled wider.
"No, I already asked you that. You didn't seem very clear about where you want to go."
Her accent was pure American, maybe more Western than Southern. She was steering two-handed, and he could see rings on her fingers. There was a slim wedding band, and a platinum thing with a big diamond. "Anywhere," Reacher said. "Anywhere I end up, that's where I want to go." She paused and smiled again.
"Are you running away from something? Have I picked up a dangerous fugitive?"
Her smile meant it wasn't a serious question, but he found himself thinking maybe it ought to have been. It wasn't too far-fetched in the circumstances. She was taking a risk, the sort of risk that was killing the art of hitching rides as a mode of transportation. "I'm exploring," he said.
"Exploring Texas? They already discovered it."
"Like a tourist," he said.
"But you don't look like a tourist. The tourists we get wear polyester leisure suits and come in a bus."
She smiled again as she said it. She looked good when she smiled. She looked assured and self-possessed, and refined to the point of elegance. An elegant Mexican woman wearing an expensive dress, clearly comfortable with talking, driving a Cadillac. He was suddenly aware of his short answers, and his hair and his stubble and his stained shirt and his creased khaki pants, and the big bruise on his forehead. "You live around here?" he asked, because she'd said,
"The tourists we get,"
and he felt he needed something to say.
"I live south of Pecos," she said, "more than 300 miles from here. I told you, that's where I'm headed."
"Never been there," he said. She went quiet and waited at a light, took off again through a wide junction and hugged the right lane. He watched her thigh move as she pressed on the gas pedal. Her bottom lip was caught between her teeth. Her eyes were narrowed. She was tense about something, but she had it under control.
"So, did you explore Lubbock?" she asked.
"I saw the Buddy Holly statue." He saw her glance down at the radio, like she was thinking,
"This guy likes music. Maybe I should put some on." "You like Buddy Holly?" she asked.
"Not really," Reacher said. "Too tame for me." She nodded at the wheel.
"I agree. I think Ritchie Valens was better. He was from Lubbock, too."
He nodded back. "I saw him in the Walk of Fame."
"How long were you in Lubbock?"
"A day."
"And now you're moving on?"
"That's the plan."
"To wherever,"
she said. "That's the plan," he said again. They passed the city limit. There was a small metal sign on a pole on the sidewalk. He smiled to himself. "City Police," the shield on the cop car had said. He turned his head and watched danger disappear behind him. The two men sat in the front of the Crown Victoria with the tall, fair man driving to give the small, dark man a break. The woman sat in the back. They rolled out of the motel lot and picked up speed on I-20 heading west toward Fort Worth away from Dallas. Nobody spoke. Thinking about the vast interior of Texas was oppressing them. The woman had read a guidebook in preparation for the mission which pointed out that the state makes up fully 7% of America's landmass and is bigger than most European countries. That didn't impress her. Everybody knew all that standard-issue Texas is real big bullshit. Everybody always has. But the guidebook also pointed out that side to side, Texas is wider than the distance between New York and Chicago. That information had some impact, and it underlined why they were facing such a long drive just to get from one nowhere interior location to another. But the car was quiet and cool and comfortable, and it was as good a place to relax as any motel room would be. They had a little time to kill after all. The woman slowed and made a shallow right toward New Mexico. Then, a mile later, a left, straight south, toward Old Mexico. Her dress was creased across the middle, like maybe she was wearing it a second day. Her perfume was subtle, mixed into the freezing air from the dashboard vents. So, is Pecan worth seeing? Reacher asked in the silence.
Pecos,
she said. Right, Pecos. She shrugged.
I like it,
she said.
It's mostly Mexican, so I'm comfortable there.
Her right hand tensed on the wheel. He saw a tendon shifting under the skin.
You like Mexican people?
She asked. He shrugged back. As much as I like any people, I guess.
You don't like people?
It varies.
You like cantaloupe?
As much as I like any fruit.
Pecos grows the sweetest cantaloupe in the whole of Texas,
she said.
And therefore, in their opinion, in the whole of the world. Also, there's a rodeo there in July, but you've missed it for this year. And just north of Pecos is Loving County. You ever heard of Loving County?
He shook his head. Never been here before.
It's the least populated county in the whole of the United States,
she said.
Well, if you leave out some of the places in Alaska, I guess. But also the richest per capita. Population is 110 souls, but there are 420 oil leases active.
He nodded. So let me out in Pecos. Sounds like a fun place.
It was the real Wild West,
she said.
A long time ago, of course. The Texas and Pacific Railroad put a stop there, so there were saloons and all. Used to be a bad place. It was a word, too, as well as a town. A verb, and also a place. To Pecos somebody meant to shoot them and throw them in the Pecos River.
They still do that? She smiled again. A different smile. This smile traded some elegance for some mischief. It eased her tension. It made her appealing.
No, they don't do that so much now, she said.
Your family from Pecos?
No, California,
she said.
I came to Texas when I got married.
Keep talking, he thought. She saved your ass. Been married long? He asked.
Just under 7 years.
Your family been in California long? She paused and smiled again.
Longer than any Californian, that's for sure, she said.
They were in flat, empty country, and she eased the silent car faster down a dead straight road. The hot sky was tinted bottle green by the windshield. The instrumentation on her dashboard showed it was 110 degrees outside and 60 inside. You a lawyer? Reacher asked. She was puzzled for a moment, and then she made the connection and craned to glance at her briefcase in the mirror.
No, she said. I'm a lawyer's client.
The conversation went dead again. She seemed nervous, and he felt awkward about it. And what else are you? He asked. She paused a beat.
Somebody's wife and mother,
she said.
And somebody's daughter and sister, I guess. And I keep a few horses, that's all. What are you?
Nothing in particular, Reacher said.
You have to be something,
she said. Well, I used to be things, he said. I was somebody's son and somebody's brother and somebody's boyfriend.
Was?
My parents died, my brother died, my girlfriend left me. Not a great line, he thought. She said nothing back. And I don't have any horses, he added.
I'm very sorry,
she said. That I don't have horses?
No, that you're all alone in the world.
Water under the bridge, he said. It's not as bad as it sounds.
You're not lonely?
He shrugged. I like being alone. She paused.
Why did your girlfriend leave you?
She went to work in Europe.
And you couldn't go with her?
She didn't really want me to go with her.
I see,
she said.
Did you want to go with her?
He was quiet for a beat. Not really, I guess, he said. Too much like settling down.
And you don't want to settle down?
He shook his head. 2 nights in the same motel gives me the creeps.
Hence 1 day in Lubbock,
she said. And the next day in Pecos, he said.
And after that?
He smiled. After that, I have no idea, he said. And that's the way I like it. She drove on, silent as the car.
So you are running away from something, she said. Maybe you had a very settled life before and you want to escape from that particular feeling?
He shook his head again. No, the exact opposite, really. I was in the Army all my life, which is very unsettled, and I grew to like the feeling.
I see, she said. You became habituated to chaos, maybe.
I guess so. She paused.
How is a person in the Army all his life?
My father was in, too, so I grew up on military bases all over the world, and then I stayed in afterwards.
But now you're out.
He nodded, all trained up and nowhere to go. He saw her thinking about his answer. He saw her tension come back. She started stepping harder on the gas, maybe without realizing it, maybe like an involuntary reflex. He had the feeling her interest in him was quickening, like the car. Ford builds Crown Victorias at its plant up in St. Thomas, Canada. Tens of thousands a year, and almost all of them, without exception, are sold to police departments, taxicab companies, or rental fleets. Almost none of them are sold to private citizens. Full-size turnpike cruisers no longer earn much of a market share, and for those diehards who still want one from the Ford Motor Company, the Mercury Grand Marquis is the same car in fancier clothes for about the same money, so it mops up the private sales. Which makes private Crown Vics rarer than red Rolls-Royces. So the subliminal response when you see one that isn't taxicab yellow or black and white with police all over the doors is to think it's an unmarked detective's car, or government issue of some other kind. Maybe U.S. Marshals or FBI or Secret Service, or a courtesy vehicle given to a medical examiner or a big city fire chief. That's the subliminal impression. And there are ways to enhance it a little. In the empty country halfway to Abilene, the tall, fair man pulled off the highway and headed through vast fields and past dense woodlands until he found a dusty turnout probably 10 miles from the nearest human being. He stopped there and turned off the motor and popped the trunk. The small, dark man heaved the heavy valise out and laid it on the ground. The woman zipped it open and handed a pair of Virginia plates to the tall, fair man. He took a screwdriver from the valise and removed the Texas plates front and rear, bolted the Virginia issue in their place. The small, dark man pulled the plastic covers off all 4 wheels, leaving the cheap black steel rim showing. He stacked the wheel covers like plates and pitched them into the trunk. The woman took radio antennas from the valise, 4 of them, CB whips and cellular telephone items bought cheap at a radio shack in L.A. The cellular antennas stuck to the rear window with self-adhesive pads. She waited until the trunk was closed again and placed the CB antennas on the lid. They had magnetic bases. They weren't wired up to anything. They were just for show. Then the small, dark man took his rightful place behind the wheel and U-turned through the dust and headed back to the highway, cruising easily. A Crown Vic, plain steel wheels, a forest of antennas, Virginia plates. Maybe an FBI pool car. 3 agents inside. Maybe on urgent business.
What did you do in the Army?
The woman asked very casually. I was a cop, Rachel said.
They have cops in the Army?
Sure they do, he said. Military police. Like cops inside the service.
I didn't know that,
she said. She went quiet again. She was thinking hard. She seemed excited.
Would you mind if I asked you some questions? She said.
He shrugged. You're giving me a ride. She nodded.
I wouldn't want to offend you.
Well, that'd be hard to do in the circumstances. 110 degrees out there, 60 in here.
There'll be a storm soon. There has to be, with the temperature like this.
He glanced ahead at the sky. It was tinted bottle green by the windshield glass, and it was blindingly clear. I don't see any sign of it, he said. She smiled again briefly.
May I ask where you live?
I don't live anywhere, he said. I move around.
You don't have a home somewhere?
He shook his head. What you see is what I've got.
You travel light,
she said. Light as I can. She paused for a fast mile.
Are you out of work?
She asked. He nodded. Usually.
Were you a good cop? In the Army?
Good enough, I guess. They made me a major, gave me some medals. She paused.
So why did you leave?
It felt like an interview, for a loan or for a job. They downsized me out of there, he said. End of the Cold War. They wanted a smaller army, not so many people in it. So they didn't need so many cops to look after them. She nodded.
Like a town. If the population gets smaller, the police department gets smaller too. Something to do with appropriations, taxes or something.
He said nothing.
I live in a very small town, she said. Echo, south of Pecos, like I told you. It's a lonely place. That's why they named it Echo. Not because it's echoey like an empty room. It's from ancient Greek mythology. Echo was a young girl in love with Narcissus. But he loved himself, not her. So she pined away until just her voice was left. So that's why it's called Echo. Not many inhabitants. But it's a county too. A county and a township. Not as empty as Loving County. But there's no police department at all. Just the county sheriff, on his own.
Something in her voice. Is that a problem? He asked.
It's a very white county, she said. Not like Pecos at all.
So?
So one feels there might be a problem if push came to shove.
And has push come to shove? She smiled awkwardly.
I can tell you were a cop, she said. You ask so many questions. And it's me who wanted to ask all the questions.
She fell silent for a spell and just drove, slim dark hands light on the wheel, going fast but not hurrying. He used the cushion-shaped buttons again and laid his seat back another fraction, watched her in the corner of his eye. She was pretty, but she was troubled. 10 years from now, she was going to have some excellent frown lines.
What was life like in the Army? She asked.
Different, he said. Different from life outside the Army.
Different how?
Different rules, different situations. It was a world of its own. It was very regulated, but it was kind of lawless, kind of rough and uncivilized.
Like the Wild West,
she said. I guess, he said back. 1 million people trained first and foremost to do what needed doing. The rules came afterwards.
Like the Wild West,
she said again.
I think you liked it.
He nodded. Some of it. She paused.
May I ask you a personal question?
Go ahead, he said.
What's your name?
Reacher, he said.
Is that your first name or your last?
People just call me Reacher, he said. She paused again.
May I ask you another personal question?
He nodded.
Have you killed people, Reacher? In the Army?
He nodded again. Some.
That's what the Army is all about, fundamentally, isn't it?
She said. I guess so, he said. Fundamentally. She went quiet again, like she was struggling with a decision.
There's a museum in Pecos, she said. A real Wild West museum. It's partly an old saloon, and partly in the old hotel next door. Out back is the site of Clay Allison's grave. You ever heard of Clay Allison?
Reacher shook his head.
They called him the gentleman gunfighter, she said. He retired, actually. But then he fell under the wheels of a grain cart and he died from his injuries. They buried him there. There's a nice headstone, with Robert Clay Allison, 1840 to 1887 on it. I've seen it. And an inscription. The inscription says, "He never killed a man that did not need killing." What do you think of that?
I think it's a fine inscription, Reacher said.
There's an old newspaper, too, she said, in a glass case, from Kansas City, I think, with his obituary in it. It says, "Certain it is that many of his stern deeds were for the right as he understood that right to be."
The Cadillac sped on south. A fine obituary, Reacher said.
You think so?
He nodded. As good as you can get, probably.
Would you like an obituary like that?
Well, not just yet, Reacher said. She smiled again, apologetically.
No, she said. I guess not. But do you think you would like to qualify for an obituary like that? I mean, eventually?
I can think of worse things, he said. She said nothing. You want to tell me where this is heading? He asked.
This road?
She said nervously. No, this conversation. She drove on for a spell, and then she lifted off the gas pedal and coasted. The car slowed, and she pulled off onto the dusty shoulder. The shoulder fell away into a dry irrigation ditch, and it put the car at a crazy angle, tilted way down on his side. She put the transmission in park with a small, delicate motion of her wrist, and she left the engine idling and the air roaring.
My name is Carmen Greer,
she said.
And I need your help. It wasn't an accident I picked you up, you know,
Carmen Greer said. Reacher's back was pressed against his door. The Cadillac was listing like a sinking ship, canted hard over on the shoulder. The slippery leather seat gave him no leverage to struggle upright. The woman had one hand on the wheel and the other on his seat back, propping herself above him. Her face was a foot away. It was unreadable. She was looking past him, out at the dust of the ditch. You gonna be able to drive off this slope? He asked. She glanced back and up at the blacktop. Its rough surface was shimmering with heat, about level with the base of her window.
I think so, she said. I hope so.
I hope so too, he said. She just stared at him. So why'd you pick me up, he asked.
Why do you think?
I don't know, he said. I thought I just got lucky. I guess I thought you were a kind person doing a stranger a favor. She shook her head.
No. I was looking for a guy like you, she said.
Why?
I must have picked up a dozen guys, she said. And I've seen hundreds. That's about all I've been doing all month long. Cruising around West Texas, looking at who needs a ride.
Why? She shrugged the question away, a dismissive little gesture.
The miles I've put on this car, she said, it's unbelievable. And the money I've spent on gas?
Why? He asked again. She went quiet, wouldn't answer, just went into a long silence. The armrest on the door was digging into his kidney. He arched his back and pressed with his shoulders and adjusted his position. Found himself wishing somebody else had picked him up, somebody content just to motor from A to B. He looked up at her. Can I call you Carmen? He asked. She nodded.
Sure, please.
Okay, Carmen, he said. Tell me what's going on here, will you? Her mouth opened, and then it closed again. Opened and closed.
I don't know how to start, she said, now that it's come to it.
Come to what? She wouldn't answer. You better tell me exactly what you want, he said, or I'm getting out of the car right here, right now.
It's 110 degrees out there.
I know it is.
A person could die in this heat.
I'll take my chances.
You can't get your door open, she said. The car is tilted too much.
Then I'll punch out the windshield. She paused a beat.
I need your help,
she said again. You never saw me before.
Not personally, she said, but you fit the bill.
What bill? She went quiet again, came up with a brief, ironic smile.
It's so difficult, she said. I've rehearsed this speech 1,000,000 times, but now I don't know if it's going to come out right.
Reacher said nothing, just waited.
You ever had anything to do with lawyers? She asked. They don't do anything for you. They just want a lot of money and a lot of time, and then they tell you there's nothing much to be done.
So get a new lawyer, he said.
I've had 4, she said. 4 in a month. They're all the same, and they're all too expensive. I don't have enough money.
You're driving a Cadillac.
It's my mother-in-law's. I'm only borrowing it.
You're wearing a big diamond ring. She went quiet again, her eyes clouded.
My husband gave it to me, she said.
He looked at her. So can't he help you?
No, he can't help me, she said. Have you ever gone looking for a private detective?
Never needed one. I was a detective.
They don't really exist, she said. Not like you see in the movies. They just want to sit in their offices and work with the phone, or on their computers with their databases. They won't come out and actually do anything for you. I went all the way to Austin. A guy there said he could help, but he wanted to use 6 men and charge me nearly $10,000 a week.
For what?
So I got desperate. I was really panicking. Then I got this idea. I figured if I looked at people hitching rides, I might find somebody. One of them might turn out to be the right type of person and willing to help me. I tried to choose pretty carefully. I only stopped for rough-looking men.
Oh, thanks, Carmen, Reacher said.
I don't mean it badly, she said. It's not uncomplimentary.
But it could have been dangerous. She nodded.
It nearly was, a couple of times. But I had to take the risk. I had to find somebody. I figured I might get rodeo guys, or men from the oil fields. You know, tough guys, roughnecks, maybe out of work, with a little time on their hands, maybe a little anxious to earn some money. But I can't pay much. Is that going to be a problem?
So far, Carmen, everything's going to be a problem. She went quiet again.
I talked to them all, she said. You know, chatted with them a little, discussed things like we did. I was trying to make some kind of judgment about what they were like inside, in terms of their characters. I was trying to assess their qualities. Maybe 12 of them. And none of them were really any good. But I think you are.
You think I'm what?
I think you're my best chance so far, she said. Really, I do. A former cop, been in the army, no ties anywhere. You couldn't be better.
I'm not looking for a job, Carmen. She nodded happily.
I know. I figured that out already. But that's better still, I think. It keeps it pure, don't you see that? Help for help's sake. No mercenary aspect to it. And your background is perfect. It obligates you.
He stared at her. No, it doesn't.
You were a soldier, she said, and a policeman. It's perfect. You're supposed to help people. That's what cops do.
We spent most of our time busting heads. Not a whole lot of helping went on.
But it must have. That's what cops are for. It's like their fundamental duty. And an army cop is even better. You said it yourself. You do what's necessary.
If you need a cop, go to the county sheriff, Pecos or wherever it is.
Echo, she said. I live in Echo, south of Pecos.
Wherever, he said. Go to the sheriff. She was shaking her head.
No, I can't do that.
Reacher said nothing more, just lay half on his back, pressed up against the door by the car's steep angle. The engine was idling patiently and the air was still roaring. The woman was still braced above him. She'd gone silent. She was staring out past him and blinking, like she was about to cry, like she was ready for a big flood of tears, like she was tragically disappointed, maybe with him, maybe with herself.
You must think I'm crazy,
she said. He turned his head and looked hard at her, top to toe. Strong, slim legs, strong, slim arms, the expensive dress. It was riding up on her thighs, and he could see her bra strap at her shoulder. It was snow-white against the color of her skin. She had clean combed hair and trimmed painted nails, an elegant, intelligent face, tired eyes.
I'm not crazy,
she said. Then she looked straight at him. Something in her face, maybe an appeal, Or maybe hopelessness. Or desperation.
"It's just that I've dreamed about this for a month," she said. "My last hope. It was a ridiculous plan, I guess, but it's all I had. And there was always the chance it would work. And with you, I think maybe it could. And now I'm screwing it up by coming across like a crazy woman."
He paused a long time. Minutes. He thought back to a pancake house he'd seen in Lubbock, right across the strip from his motel. It had looked pretty good. He could have crossed the street, gone in there, had a big stack with bacon on the side, lots of syrup, maybe an egg. He would have come out a half hour after she blew town. He could be sitting next to some cheerful trucker now, listening to rock and roll on the radio. On the other hand, he could be bruised and bleeding in a police cell, with an arraignment date coming up. "So start over," he said. "Just say what you gotta say. But first, drive us out of this damn ditch. I'm very uncomfortable, and I could use a cup of coffee. Is there any place up ahead where we could get coffee?"
"I think so,"
she said.
"Yes, there is. About an hour, I think."
"So let's go there. Let's get a cup of coffee."
"You're going to dump me and run," she said.
It was an attractive possibility. She stared at him, maybe 5 long seconds, and then she nodded, like a decision was made. She put the transmission in D and hit the gas. The car had front-wheel drive and all the weight was on the back, so the tires just clawed at nothing and spun. Gravel rattled against the underbody and a cloud of hot, cocky dust rose up all around them. Then the tires caught and the car heaved itself out of the ditch and bounced up over the edge of the blacktop. She got it straight in the lane, and then she floored it and took off south.
"I don't know where to begin,"
she said. "At the beginning," he said. "Always works best that way. Think about it. Tell me over coffee. We've got the time." She shook her head, stared forward through the windshield, eyes locked on the empty, shimmering road ahead. She was quiet for a mile, already doing 70.
"No, we don't," she said. "It's real urgent."
50 miles southwest of Abilene, on a silent county road 10 miles north of the main east-west highway, the Crown Victoria waited quietly on the shoulder, its engine idling, its hood unlatched and standing an inch open for better cooling. All around, it was flatness so extreme the curvature of the earth was revealed, the dusty, parched brush falling slowly away to the horizon in every direction. There was no traffic, and therefore no noise beyond the tick and whisper of the idling engine and the heavy buzz of the earth baking and cracking under the unbearable heat of the sun. The driver had the electric door mirror racked all the way outward so he could see the whole of the road behind him. The Crown Vic's own dust had settled, and the view was clear for about a mile, right back to the point where the blacktop and the sky mixed together and broke and boiled into a silvery, shimmering mirage. The driver had his eyes focused on that distant glare, waiting for it to be pierced by the indistinct shape of a car. He knew what car it would be. The team was well briefed. It would be a white Mercedes-Benz, driven by a man on his own, toward an appointment he couldn't miss. The man would be driving fast, because he would be running late, because he was habitually late for everything. They knew the time of his appointment, and they knew his destination was 30 miles farther on up the road, so simple arithmetic gave them a target time they could set their watches by. A target time that was fast approaching. "So let's do it," the driver said. He stepped out of the car into the heat and clicked the hood down into place, slid back into the seat and took a ball cap from the woman. It was one of 3 bought from a souvenir vendor on Hollywood Boulevard, $13.95 each. It was dark blue, with FBI machine embroidered in white cotton thread across the front. The driver squared it on his head and pulled the peak low over his eyes. Moved the transmission lever into drive and kept his foot hard on the brake. Leaned forward a fraction and kept his eyes on the mirror. "Right on time," he said. The silver mirage was boiling and wobbling, and a white shape pulled free of it and speared out toward them like a fish leaping out of water. The shape settled and steadied on the road, moving fast, crouching low. A white Mercedes sedan, wide tires, dark windows. The driver eased his foot off the brake, and the Crown Vic crawled forward through the dust. He touched the gas when the Mercedes was still 100 yards behind him. The Mercedes roared past, and the Crown Vic pulled out into the hot blast of its slipstream. The driver straightened the wheel and accelerated, smiled with his lips hard together. The killing crew was going to work again. The Mercedes driver saw headlights flashing in his mirror and looked again and saw the sedan behind him. 2 peaked caps silhouetted in the front seat. He dropped his eyes automatically to his Speedo, which was showing more than 90. Felt the cold "oh shit" stab in his chest. Eased off the gas while he calculated how late he was already and how far he still had to go and what his best approach to these guys should be. Humility, or maybe "I'm too important to be hassled," or what about a sort of "come on guys, I'm working too" camaraderie. The sedan pulled alongside as he slowed, and he saw 3 people, one of them a woman, radio antennas all over the car. No lights, no siren. Not regular cops. The driver was waving him to the shoulder. The woman was pressing an ID wallet against her window. It had FBI in 2-inch-high letters. Their caps said FBI. Serious-looking people in some kind of duty fatigues. Serious-looking squad car. He relaxed a little. The FBI didn't stop you for speeding. Must be something else. Maybe some kind of security check. Which made sense, considering what lay 30 miles up the road. He nodded to the woman and braked and eased right onto the shoulder. He feathered the pedal and coasted to a stop in a big cloud of dust. The bureau car eased up and stopped behind him, the brightness of its headlight beams dimmed by the cloud. The way to do it is to keep them quiet and alive as long as possible. Postpone any kind of struggle. Struggling leads to evidence, blood and fibers and body fluids spraying and leaking all over the place. So they all 3 got out of the car at a medium speed, like they were harassed professionals dealing with something important, but not something right up there at the top of their agenda. "Mr. Eugene?" the woman called. "Al Eugene, right?" The Mercedes driver opened his door and slid out of his seat and stood up in the heat and the glare. He was around 30, not tall, dark and sallow, soft and rounded. He faced the woman, and she saw some kind of innate Southern courtesy toward women place him at an immediate disadvantage. "What can I do for you, ma'am?" he asked. "Your cellular phone not working, sir?" the woman asked. Eugene patted at the pocket of his suit coat. "Should be," he said. "May I see it, sir?" Eugene took it out of his pocket and handed it over. The woman dialed a number and looked surprised. "Seems okay," she said. "Sir, can you spare us 5 minutes?" "Maybe," Eugene said, "if you tell me what for." "We have an FBI assistant director a ways up the road. Needs to speak with you. Something urgent, I guess, or we wouldn't be here. And something pretty important, or we'd have been told what it's all about." Eugene pulled back his cuff and looked at his watch. "I have an appointment," he said. The woman was nodding. "We know about that, sir. We took the liberty of calling ahead and rescheduling for you. 5 minutes is all we need." Eugene shrugged. "Can I see some ID?" he asked. The woman handed over her wallet. It was made of worn black leather and had a milky plastic window on the outside. There was an FBI photo ID behind it, laminated and embossed and printed with a kind of slightly old-fashioned typeface the federal government might use. Like most people in the United States, Eugene had never seen an FBI ID. He assumed he was looking at his first. "Up the road a piece?" he said. "Okay. I'll follow you, I guess." "We'll drive you," the woman said. "There's a checkpoint in place, and civilian cars make them real nervous. We'll bring you right back. 5 minutes is all." Eugene shrugged again. "Okay," he said. They all walked as a group back toward the Crown Vic. The driver held the front passenger door for Eugene. "You right up here, sir," he said. "They're listing you as a Class A individual, and if we put a Class A individual in the back seat, then we'll get our asses kicked butt good, that's for damn sure." They saw Eugene swell up a little from his assigned status. He nodded and ducked down and slid into the front seat. Either he hadn't noticed they still had his phone, or he didn't care. The driver closed the door on him and ducked around the hood to his own. The tall, fair man and the woman climbed into the rear. The Crown Vic eased around the parked Benz and pulled left onto the blacktop, accelerated up to about 55.
"Ahead,"
the woman said. The driver nodded. "I see it," he said. "We'll make it." There was a plume of dust on the road 3 or 4 miles into the distance. It was rising up and dragging left in the faint breeze. The driver slowed, hunting the turn he had scouted 30 minutes before. He spotted it and pulled left and crossed the opposite shoulder and bumped down through a depression where the road was built up like a causeway. Then he slewed to the right, tight in behind a stand of brush tall enough to hide the car. The man and the woman in the rear seat came out with handguns and leaned forward and jammed them into Eugene's neck right behind the ears where the structure of the human skull provides 2 nice muzzle-shaped sockets.
"Sit real still,"
the woman said. Eugene sat real still. 2 minutes later, a big dark vehicle blasted by above them. A truck or a bus. Dust clouded the sky, and the brush rustled in the moving air. The driver got out and approached Eugene's door with a gun in his hand. He opened the door and leaned in and jammed the muzzle into Eugene's throat, where the ends of the collarbones make another convenient socket. "Get out," he said. "Real careful."
"What?"
was all Eugene could say.
"We'll tell you what,"
the woman said.
"Now get out."
Eugene got out, with 3 guns at his head.
"Step away from the car,"
the woman said.
"Walk away from the road."
This was the tricky time. Eugene was glancing around as far and as fast as he dared move his head. His eyes were jumping, his body was twitching. He stepped away from the car. 1 pace, 2, 3. Eyes everywhere. The woman nodded.
"Al!"
she called loudly. Her 2 partners jumped away, long sideways strides. Eugene's head snapped round to face the woman who had called his name. She shot him through the right eye. The sound of the gun clapped and rolled across the hot landscape like thunder. The back of Eugene's head came off in a messy cloud, and he went straight down and sprawled in a loose tangle of arms and legs. The woman stepped around him and crouched down and took a closer look. Then she stepped away and stood up straight with her legs and arms spread like she was ready to be searched at the airport. "Check," she said. The 2 men stepped close and examined every inch of her skin and clothing. They checked her hair and her hands. "Clear," the small dark man said. "Clear," the tall fair man said. She nodded, a faint smile. No residue. No evidence. No blood or bone or brains anywhere on her person.
"Okay," she said.
The 2 men stepped back to Eugene and took an arm and a leg each and dragged his body 10 feet into the brush. They had found a narrow limestone cleft there, a crack in the rock maybe 8 feet deep and 1.5 feet across, wide enough to take a man's corpse sideways, too narrow to admit the 6-foot wingspan of a vulture or a buzzard. They maneuvered the body until the trailing hand and the trailing foot fell into the hole. Then they lowered away carefully until they were sure the torso would fit. This guy was fatter than some, but he slid in without snagging on the rock. As soon as they were sure, they dropped him the rest of the way. He wedged tight, about 7 feet down. The bloodstains were already drying and blackening. They kicked desert dust over them and swept the area with a mesquite branch to confuse the massive footprints. Then they walked over and climbed into the Crown Vic, and the driver backed up and swung through the brush, bounced through the dip and up the slope to the roadway. The big car nosed back the way it had come and accelerated gently to 55 miles an hour. Moments later, it passed by Eugene's white Mercedes, parked right where he'd left it, on the other side of the road. It already looked abandoned and filmed with dust.
"I have a daughter,"
Carmen Greer said.
"I told you that, right?"
"You'd told me you were a mother," Reacher said. She nodded at the wheel.
"Of a daughter. She's 6.5 years old."
Then she went quiet for a minute.
They call her Mary Ellen,
she said. They?
my husband's family.
They named your kid?
It just happened, I guess. I wasn't in a good position to stop it.
Reacher was quiet for a beat. What would you have called her? He asked. She shrugged.
Gloria, maybe? I thought she was glorious.
She went quiet again. But she's Mary Ellen, he said. She nodded.
They call her Ellie, for short. Miss Ellie, sometimes.
She's 6.5?
But we've been married less than 7 years. I told you that too, right? So you can do the math. Is that a problem?
Doing the math?
Thinking about the implication.
He shook his head at the windshield. Not a problem to me. Why would it be?
Not a problem to me either, she said. But it explains why I wasn't in a good position.
He made no reply.
We got off to all kinds of a bad start,
she said.
Me and his family.
She said it with a dying fall in her voice, the way a person might refer back to a tragedy in the past, a car wreck, a plane crash, a fatal diagnosis. The way a person might refer back to the day her life changed forever. She gripped the wheel and the car drove itself on, a cocoon of cold and quiet in the blazing landscape. Who are they? He asked.
The Greers, she said. An old Echo County family. Been there since Texas was first stolen. Maybe they were there to steal some of it themselves.
What are they like?
They're what you might expect, she said. Old white Texans, big money from way back. A lot of it gone now, but a lot of it still left. Some history with oil and cattle ranching. River-baptized Protestants. Not that they ever go to church or think about what the Lord might be saying to them. They hunt animals for pleasure. The father died some time ago. The mother is still alive. There are 2 sons, and there are cousins all over the county. My husband is the elder boy, Sloop Greer.
Sloop? Reacher said. She smiled for the first time since driving out of the ditch.
Sloop,
she said again. What kind of a name is that?
An old family name, she said. Some ancestor, I guess. Probably he was at the Alamo, fighting against mine.
Sounds like a boat. What's the other boy called? Yacht? Tug? Ocean liner? Oil tanker?
Robert, she said. People call him Bobby.
Sloop, Reacher said again. That's a new one to me.
New to me, too, she said. The whole thing was new to me. But I used to like his name. It marked him out somehow.
I guess it would.
I met him in California, Carmen said. We were in school together, UCLA.
Off of his home turf, Reacher said. She stopped smiling.
Correct. Only way it could have happened, looking back. If I'd have met him out here, you know, with the whole package out in plain view, it would never have happened. No way. I can promise you that. Always assuming I'd even come out here in the first place. Which I hope I wouldn't have.
She stopped talking and squinted ahead into the glare of the sun. There was a ribbon of black road and a bright shape up ahead on the left, shiny aluminum broken into moving fragments by the haze boiling up off the blacktop.
There's the diner, she said. They'll have coffee, I'm sure.
Strange kind of diner if it didn't, he said.
There are lots of strange things here, she said.
The diner sat alone on the side of the road, set on a slight rise in the center of an acre of beaten dirt serving as its parking lot. There was a sign on a tall pole and no shade anywhere. There were 2 pickup trucks carelessly parked far from each other.
Okay,
she said, hesitant, starting to slow the car.
Now you're going to run. You figure one of these guys with the pickups will give you a ride.
He said nothing.
If you are, do it later, okay? She said. Please? I don't want to be left alone in a place like this.
She slowed some more and bounced off the road onto the dirt, parked right next to the sign pole as if it was a shade tree offering protection from the sun. Its slender shadow fell across the hood like a bar. She pushed the lever into park and switched off the engine. The air conditioner's compressor hissed and gurgled in the sudden silence. Reacher opened his door. The heat hit him like a steel-yard furnace. It was so intense he could hardly catch his breath. He stood dumb for a second and waited for her, and then they walked together across the hot dirt. It was baked dry and hard like concrete. Beyond it was a tangle of mesquite brush and a blinding white-hot sky as far as the eye could see. He let her walk half a pace ahead of him so he could watch her. She had her eyes half closed and her head bowed down to the ground, like she didn't want to see or be seen. The hem on her dress had fallen to a decorous knee-length. She moved very gracefully, like a dancer, her upper body erect and perfectly still, and her bare legs scissoring elegantly below it. The diner had a tiny foyer with a cigarette machine and a rack full of flyers about real estate and oil changes and small-town rodeos and gun shows. Inside the second door, it was cold again. They stood together in the delicious chill for a moment. There was a register next to the door and a tired waitress sitting sideways on a counter stool. A cook visible in the kitchen. 2 men in separate booths, eating. All 4 people looked up and paused, like there were things they could say but wouldn't. Reacher looked at each of them for a second, and then turned away and led Carmen to a booth at the far end of the room. He slid across sticky vinyl and tilted his head back into a jet of cold air coming down from a vent in the ceiling. Carmen sat opposite and raised her head, and he looked at her face on for the first time.
"My daughter looks nothing at all like me," she said. "Sometimes I think that's the cruelest irony in this whole situation. Those big old Greer genes just about steamrollered mine, that's for sure."
She had spectacular dark eyes with long lashes and a slight tilt to them, and a straight nose that made an open Y shape against her brows. High cheekbones framed by thick black hair that shone navy in the light. A rosebud of a mouth with a subtle trace of red lipstick. Her skin was smooth and clear, the color of weak tea or dark honey, and it had a translucent glow behind it. It was actually a whole lot lighter in color than Reacher's own sunburned forearms, and he was white and she wasn't. "So who does Ellie look like?" he asked.
"Them,"
she said. The waitress brought ice water and a pad and a pencil and an upturned chin and no conversation. Carmen ordered iced coffee, and Reacher ordered his hot and black.
"She doesn't look like she's mine at all," Carmen said. "Pink skin, yellow hair, a little chubby. But she's got my eyes."
"Lucky Ellie," Reacher said. She smiled briefly.
"Thank you. Plan is she should stay lucky."
She held the water glass flat against her face. Then she used a napkin to wipe the dew away. The waitress brought their drinks. The iced coffee was in a tall glass, and she spilled some of it as she put it down. Reacher's was in an insulated plastic flask, and she shoved an empty china mug across the table next to it. She left the check face down halfway between the 2 drinks and walked away without saying anything at all.
"You need to understand I loved Sloop once,"
Carmen said. Reacher made no reply, and she looked straight at him.
"Does it bother you to hear this kind of stuff?"
she asked. He shook his head, although the truth was it did bother him a little. Loners aren't necessarily too comfortable with a stranger's intimacies.
"You told me to start at the beginning," she said.
"Yes," he said, "I did."
"So I will," she said. "I loved him once. You need to understand that. And you need to understand that wasn't hard to do. He was big, and he was handsome, and he smiled a lot, and he was casual, and he was relaxed. And we were in school, and we were young, and L.A. is a very special place, where anything seems possible and nothing seems to matter very much."
She took a drinking straw from the canister on the table and unwrapped it.
"And you need to know where I was coming from," she said. "Truth is, I had it all completely backward. I wasn't some Mexican worrying about whether the white family would accept me. I was worrying about my family accepting this gringo boy. That's how it seemed to me. I come from 1,000 acres in Napa. We've been there forever. We were always the richest people I knew, and the most cultured. We had the art and the history and the music. We gave to museums. We employed white people. So I spent my time worrying about what my folks would say about me marrying out.
He sipped his coffee. It was stewed and old, but it would do. And what did they say? He asked.
They went insane. I thought they were being foolish. Now I understand they weren't.
So what happened? She sipped her drink through the straw, took a napkin from a canister and dabbed her lips. It came away, marked with her lipstick.
Well, I was pregnant, she said. And that made everything a million times worse, of course. My parents are very devout, and they're very traditional, and basically they cut me off, I guess. They disowned me. It was like the whole Victorian thing, expelled from the snowy doorstep with a bundle of rags. Except it wasn't snowing, of course, and the bundle of rags was really a Louis Vuitton valise.
So what'd you do?
We got married. Nobody came. Just a few friends from school. We lived a few months in L.A. We graduated. We stayed there until the baby was a month away. It was fun, actually. We were young and in love.
He poured himself a second cup of coffee. But, he asked.
But Sloop couldn't find a job. I began to realize he wasn't trying very hard. Getting a job wasn't in his plan. College was 4 years of fun for him. Then it was back to the fold. Go take over Daddy's business. His father was ready to retire by then. I didn't like that idea. I thought we were starting up fresh, on our own, you know? A new generation on both sides. I felt I'd given stuff up, and I thought he should too. So we argued a lot. I couldn't work because of being so pregnant, and I had no money of my own. So in the end, we couldn't make the rent. So in the end, he won the argument. And we trailed back here to Texas, and we moved into the big old house with his folks and his brother and his cousins all around. And I'm still there.
The dying fall was back in her voice, the day her life changed forever. And? He asked. She looked straight at him.
And it was like the ground opens up and you fall straight through to hell. It was such a shock I couldn't even react at all. They treated me strange, and the second day I suddenly realized what was going on. All my life I'd been like a princess, you know? And then I was just a hip kid among 10,000 others in L.A. But now I was suddenly just a piece of beaner trash. They never said it straight out, but it was so clear. They hated me because I was the greaseball whore who'd hooked their darling boy. Oh, they were painfully polite, because I guess their strategy was to wait for Sloop to come to his senses and dump me. It happens, you know, in Texas. The good old boys, when they're young and foolish, they like a little dark meat. Sometimes it's like a rite of passage. Then they wise up and straighten out. I knew that's what they were thinking, and hoping. And it was a shock, believe me. I'd never thought of myself like that. Never. I'd never had to. Never had to confront it. The whole world was turned upside down in an instant. Like falling in freezing water. Couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't even move.
But he didn't dump you, evidently. She looked down at the table.
No,
she said.
He didn't dump me. He started hitting me instead. First time, he punched me in the face. Then Ellie was born the next day.
The Crown Victoria turned back into a normal Hertz rental behind a stand of trees 8 miles off the highway, halfway between Abilene and Big Springs. The Virginia plates came off and the Texas plates went back on. The plastic wheel covers were kicked back into place. The cellular antennas were peeled off the rear glass and laid back in the valise. The CB whips pulled clear of the sheet metal and joined them. The souvenir ball caps were nested together and packed away with the handguns. Eugene's mobile phone was smashed against a rock and the pieces hurled deep into the copse. A little grit from the shoulder of the road was sprinkled onto the front passenger seat so that the rental people would have to vacuum up any of Eugene's stray hairs and fibers along with it. Then the big sedan pulled back onto the blacktop and wound its way back to the highway. It cruised comfortably, heading west, a forgettable vehicle filled with 3 forgettable people. It made one more stop, at a comfort area named for the Colorado River, where sodas were consumed and a call was made from an untraceable payphone. The call was to Las Vegas, from where it was rerouted to Dallas, from where it was rerouted to an office in a small town in the west of Texas. The call reported complete success so far, and it was gratefully received.
He split my lip and loosened my teeth,
Carmen Greer said. Reacher watched her face.
That was the first time,
she said.
He just lost it. But straight away he was full of remorse. He drove me to the emergency room himself. It's a long, long drive from the house. Hours and hours. And the whole way he was begging me to forgive him. Then he was begging me not to tell the truth about what had happened. He seemed really ashamed, so I agreed. But I never had to say anything anyway, because as soon as we arrived, I started into labor, and they took me straight upstairs to the delivery unit. Ellie was born the next day.
And then what?
And then it was okay,
she said.
For a week at least. Then he started hitting me again. I was doing everything wrong. I was paying too much attention to the baby. I didn't want sex because I was hurting from the stitches. He said I'd gotten fat and ugly from the pregnancy.
Reacher said nothing.
He got me believing it, she said. For a long, long time. That happens, you know. You've got to be very self-confident to resist it. And I wasn't in that situation. He took away all my self-esteem. 2 or 3 years, I thought it was my fault. And I tried to do better.
What'd the family do? She pushed her glass away, left the iced coffee half finished.
They didn't know about it,
she said.
And then his father died, which made it worse. He was the only reasonable one. He was okay. But now it's just his mother and his brother. He's awful and she's a witch. And they still don't know. It happens in secret. It's a big house. It's like a compound, really. We're not all on top of each other. And it's all very complicated. He's way too stubborn and proud to ever agree with them he's made a mistake. So the more they're down on me, the more he pretends he loves me. He misleads them. He buys me things. He bought me this ring.
She held up her hand, bent delicately at the wrist, showing off the platinum band with the big diamond. It looked like a hell of a thing. Reacher had never bought a diamond ring. He had no idea what they cost. A lot, he guessed.
He bought me horses, she said. They knew I wanted horses, and he bought them for me, so he could look good in front of them. But really to explain away the bruises. It was his stroke of genius, a permanent excuse. He makes me say I've fallen off. They know I'm still just learning to ride, and that explains a lot in rodeo country. Bruises and broken bones. They take it for granted.
He's broken your bones? She nodded and started touching parts of her body, twisting and turning in the confines of the tight booth, silently recounting her injuries, hesitating slightly now and then like she couldn't recall them all.
My ribs, first of all, I guess, she said. He kicks me when I'm on the floor. He does that a lot when he's mad. My left arm, by twisting it. My collarbone. My jaw. I've had 3 teeth reimplanted.
He stared at her. She shrugged.
The emergency room people think I'm the worst rider in the history of the West.
They believe it?
Maybe they just choose to.
And his mother and brother?
Likewise, she said. Obviously, I'm not going to get the benefit of the doubt.
Why the hell did you stick around? Why didn't you just get out the very first time? She sighed and she closed her eyes and she turned her head away. Spread her hands on the table, palms down, and then turned them over, palms up.
I can't explain it, she whispered. Nobody can ever explain it. You have to know what it's like. I had no confidence in myself. I had a newborn baby and no money, not a dime. I had no friends. I was watched all the time. I couldn't even make a call in private.
He said nothing. She opened her eyes and looked straight at him.
And worst of all, I had nowhere to go,
she said. Home? He asked. She shook her head.
I never even thought about it,
she said.
Taking the beatings was better than trying to crawl back to my family with a white blonde baby in my arms.
He said nothing.
And the first time you pass up the chance, you've had it,
she said.
That's how it is. It just gets worse. Whenever I thought about it, I still had no money. I still had a baby. Then she was a 1-year-old, then a 2-year-old, then a 3-year-old. The time is never right. If you stay that first time, you're trapped forever. And I stayed that first time. I wish I hadn't, but I did.
He said nothing. She looked at him, appealing for something.
You have to take it on faith,
she said.
You don't know how it is. You're a man. You're big and strong. Somebody hits you, you hit him back. You're on your own. You don't like someplace, you move on. It's different for me. Even if you can't understand it, you have to believe it.
He said nothing.
I could have gone if I'd left Ellie,
she said.
Sloop told me if I left the baby with him, he'd pay my fare any place I wanted to go, first class. He said he'd call a limo all the way from Dallas, right there and then, to take me straight to the airport.
He said nothing.
But I wouldn't do that,
she said quietly.
I mean, how could I? So Sloop makes out this is my choice. Like I'm agreeing to it. Like I want it. So he keeps on hitting me. Punching me, kicking me, slapping me, humiliating me sexually. Every day, even if he isn't mad at me. And if he is mad at me, he just goes crazy.
There was silence. Just the rush of air from the cooling vents in the diner's ceiling. Vague noise from the kitchens. Carmen Greer's low breathing. The clink of fracturing ice in her abandoned glass. He looked across the table at her, tracing his gaze over her hands, her arms, her neck, her face. The neckline of her dress had shifted left, and he could see a thickened knot on her collarbone. A healed break, no doubt about it. But she was sitting absolutely straight, with her head up and her eyes defiant, and her posture was telling him something. He hits you every day? He asked. She closed her eyes.
Well, most every day. Not literally, I guess, but 3-4 times in a week, usually. Sometimes more. It feels like every day.
He was quiet for a long moment, staring straight at her. Then he shook his head. You're making it up, he said. The watchers stayed resolutely on station, even though there was nothing much to watch. The red house baked under the sun and stayed quiet. The maid came out and fetched a car and drove away in a cloud of dust, presumably to the market. There was some horse activity around the barn. A couple of listless ranch hands walked the animals out and around, brushed them down, put them back inside. There was a bunkhouse way back beyond the barn. Same architecture, same blood-red siding. It looked mostly empty, because the barn was mostly empty. Maybe 5 horses in total. One of them, the pony for the kid, mostly just resting in their stalls because of the terrible heat. The maid came back and carried packages into the kitchen. The boy made a note of it in his book. The dust from her wheels floated slowly back to earth, and the men with the telescopes watched it, with their tractor caps reversed to keep the sun off their necks. You're lying to me, Reacher said. Carmen turned away to the window. Red spots the size of quarters crept high into her cheeks. Anger, he thought. Or embarrassment, maybe.
Why do you say that?
She asked quietly. Physical evidence, he said. You've got no bruising visible anywhere. Your skin is clear. Light makeup. Too light to be hiding anything. It's certainly not hiding the fact you're blushing like crazy. You look like you just stepped out of the beauty parlor. And you're moving easily. You skipped across that parking lot like a ballerina. So you're not hurting any place. You're not stiff and sore. If he's hitting you most every day, he must be doing it with a feather. She was quiet for a beat. Then she nodded.
"There's more to tell you,"
she said. He looked away.
"The crucial part,"
she said.
"The main point."
"Why should I listen?" She took another drinking straw and unwrapped it, flattened the paper tube that had covered it, and began rolling it into a tight spiral between her finger and thumb.
"I'm sorry,"
she said,
"but I had to get your attention."
Reacher turned his head and looked out of the window, too. The sun was moving the bar of shadow across the Cadillac's hood like the finger on a clock. His attention? He recalled opening his motel room door that morning. A brand new day, ready and waiting to be filled with whatever came his way. He recalled the reflection of the cop in the mirror and the sticky whisper of the Cadillac's tires on the hot pavement as they slowed alongside him. "Okay. You got my attention," he said, looking out at the car.
"It happened for 5 whole years,"
she said.
"Exactly like I told you, I promise. Most every day. But then it stopped, 1.5 years ago. But I had to tell it to you backward because I needed you to listen to me."
He said nothing.
"This isn't easy," she said, "telling this stuff to a stranger."
He turned back to face her. "It isn't easy listening to it." She took a breath.
"You going to run out on me?"
He shrugged. "I almost did a minute ago." She was quiet again.
"Please don't," she said. "At least, not here. Please. Just listen a little more."
He looked straight at her. "Okay, I'm listening," he said.
"But will you still help me?"
"With what?" She said nothing. "What did it feel like?" he asked, "getting hit?"
"Feel like?"
she repeated. "Physically," he said. She looked away, thought about it.
"Depends where,"
she said. He nodded. She knew it felt different in different places. "The stomach," he said.
"I threw up a lot,"
she said.
"I was worried because there was blood."
He nodded again. She knew what it felt like to be hit in the stomach.
"I swear it's true," she said. 5 whole years. Why would I make it up?"
"So what happened?" he said. "Why'd he stop?" She paused, like she was aware people might be looking at her. Reacher glanced up and saw heads turn away. The cook, the waitress, the 2 guys at the distant tables. The cook and the waitress were faster about it than the 2 guys chose to be. There was hostility in their faces.
"Can we go now?"
she asked.
"We need to get back. It's a long drive."
"I'm coming with you?"
"That's the whole point,"
she said. He glanced away again out of the window.
"Please, Reacher," she said. "At least hear the rest of the story and then decide. I can let you out in Pecos, if you won't come all the way to Echo. You can see the museum. You can see Clay Allison's grave."
He watched the bar of shadow touch the Cadillac's windshield. The interior would be like a furnace by now.
"You should see it anyway,"
she said,
"if you're exploring Texas."
"Okay," he said.
"Thank you,"
she said. He made no reply.
"Wait for me," she said. "I need to go to the bathroom. It's a long drive."
She slid out of the booth with uninjured grace and walked the length of the room, head down, looking neither left nor right. The 2 guys at the tables watched her until she was almost past them, and then switched their blank gazes straight back to Reacher. He ignored them and turned the check over and dumped small change from his pocket on top of it. Exact amount, no tip. He figured a waitress who didn't talk didn't want one. He slid out of the booth and walked to the door. The 2 guys watched him all the way. He stood in front of the glass and looked out beyond the parking lot. Watched the flat land bake under the sun for a minute or 2 until he heard her footsteps behind him. Her hair was combed and she'd done something with her lipstick. "I guess I'll use the bathroom too," he said. She glanced right, halfway between the 2 guys.
"Wait until I'm in the car," she said. "I don't want to be left alone in here. I shouldn't have come in here in the first place."
She pushed out through the doors, and he watched her to the car. She got in, and he saw it shudder as she started the engine to run the air. He turned and walked back to the men's room. It was a fair-sized space, 2 porcelain urinals and 1 toilet cubicle, a chipped sink with a cold water faucet, a fat roll of paper towels sitting on top of the machine it should have been installed in. Not the cleanest facility he'd ever seen. He unzipped and used the left-hand urinal, heard footsteps outside the door, and glanced up at the chromium valve which fed the flush pipes. It was dirty, but it was rounded, and it reflected what was behind him like a tiny security mirror. He saw the door open and a man step inside. He saw the door close again and the man settle back against it. He was one of the customers, presumably one of the pickup drivers. The chromium valve distorted the view, but the guy's head was nearly to the top of the door, not a small person, and he was fiddling blindly behind his back. Reacher heard the click of the door lock. Then the guy shifted again and hung his hands loose by his sides. He was wearing a black t-shirt. There was writing on it, but Reacher couldn't read it backward. Some kind of an insignia, maybe an oil company. "You new round here?" the guy asked. Reacher made no reply, just watched the reflection. "I asked you a question," the guy said. Reacher ignored him. "I'm talking to you," the guy said. "Well, that's a big mistake," Reacher said. "All you know, I might be a polite type of person. I might feel obligated to turn around and listen, whereupon I'd be pissing all over your shoes." The guy shuffled slightly, caught out. Clearly, he had some kind of set speech prepared, which was what Reacher had been counting on. A little improvised interruption might slow him down some, maybe enough to get zipped up and decent. The guy was still shuffling, deciding whether to react. "So I guess it's down to me to tell you," he said. "Somebody's got to." He wasn't reacting. No talent for repartee. "Tell me what?" Reacher asked. "How it is round here?" Reacher paused a beat. The only problem with coffee was its diuretic effect. "And how is it around here?" he asked. "Round here, you don't bring beaners into decent folks' places." "What?" Reacher said. "What part don't you understand?" Reacher breathed out, maybe 10 seconds to go. "I didn't understand any of it," he said. "You don't bring beaners in a place like this." "What's a beaner?" Reacher asked. The guy took a step forward. His reflection grew disproportionately larger. "Latinos," he said, "eat beans all the time." "Latina," Reacher said, with an A. Gender counts with inflected languages. And she had iced coffee. Haven't seen her eat a bean all day. "You some kind of a smart guy?" Reacher finished and zipped up with a sigh. Didn't flush. Place like that, it didn't seem like standard practice. He just turned to the sink and operated the faucet. "Well, I'm smarter than you," he said. "That's for damn sure. But then that's not saying much. This roll of paper towels is smarter than you. A lot smarter. Each sheet on its own is practically a genius compared to you. They could stroll into Harvard one by one, full scholarships for each of them, while you're still struggling with your GED. It was like taunting a dinosaur, some kind of a brontosaurus where the brain is a very long distance from any place else. The sound went in, and some time later it was received and understood. 4 or 5 seconds until it showed in the guy's face. 4 or 5 seconds after that, he swung with his right. It was a ponderous, slow swing with a big, bunched fist on the end of a big, heavy arm, aiming wide and high for Reacher's head. It could have caused some damage if it had landed. But it didn't land. Reacher caught the guy's wrist in his left palm and stopped the swing dead. A loud, wet smack sound echoed off the bathroom tile. "The bacteria on this floor are smarter than you," he said. He twisted his hips 90 degrees so his groin was protected, and he squeezed the guy's wrist with his hand. There had been a time when he could break bones by squeezing with his hand. It was more about blind determination than sheer strength. But right then he didn't feel it. "This is your lucky day," he said. "All I know, you could be a cop. So I'm going to let you go." The guy was staring desperately at his wrist, watching it get crushed. The clammy flesh was swelling and going red. "After you apologize," Reacher said. The guy stared on, 4 or 5 seconds, like a dinosaur. "I'm sorry," he said. "I apologize." "Not to me, asshole," Reacher said. "To the lady." The guy said nothing. Reacher turned up the pressure, felt his thumb go slick with sweat, sliding up over the tip of his index finger. Felt the bones in the guy's wrist click and move. The radius and the ulna getting closer than nature intended. "Okay," the guy gasped. "Enough!" Reacher released the wrist. The guy snatched it back and cradled his hand, panting, looking up, looking down. "Give me the keys to your truck," Reacher said. The guy twisted awkwardly to get into his right pocket with his left hand, held out a large bunch of keys. "Now go wait for me in the parking lot," Reacher said. The guy unlocked the door left-handed and shuffled out. Reacher dropped the keys in the unflushed urinal and washed his hands again, dried them carefully with the paper towels, and left the bathroom behind him. He found the guy out in the lot, halfway between the diner door and the Cadillac. "Be real nice now," Reacher called to him. "Maybe offer to wash her car or something. She'll say no, but it's the thought that counts, right? If you're creative enough, you get your keys back. Otherwise, you're walking home." He could see through the tinted glass that she was watching them approach, not understanding. He motioned with his hand that she should let her window down, a circular motion like winding a handle. She buzzed the glass down, maybe 2 inches, just wide enough to frame her eyes. They were wide and worried. "This guy's got something to say to you," Reacher said. He stepped back. The guy stepped up, looked down at the ground, and then back at Reacher like a whipped dog. Reacher nodded encouragingly. The guy put his hand on his chest like an operatic tenor or a fancy maitre d', bent slightly from the waist to address the 2-inch gap in the glass. "Ma'am," he said, "just wanted to say we'd all be real pleased if y'all'd come back real soon, and would you like me to wash your car, seeing as you're here right now?"
"What?"
she said. They both turned separately to Reacher, the guy pleading, Carmen astonished. "Beat it," he said. "I left your keys in the bathroom." 4 or 5 seconds later, the guy was back on his way to the diner. Reacher stepped round the hood to his door, pulled it open.
"I thought you were running out on me," Carmen said. "I thought you'd ask that guy for a ride."
"I'd rather ride with you," he said. The Crown Victoria drove south to a lonely crossroads hamlet. There was an old diner on the right and a vacant lot on the left, a melted stop line on the road. Then a decrepit gas station, and opposite it, a one-room schoolhouse. Dust and heat shimmer everywhere. The big car slowed and crawled through the junction at walking pace. It rolled past the school gate, and then suddenly picked up speed and drove away. Little Ellie Greer watched it go. She was in a wooden chair at the schoolroom window, halfway through raising the lid of her big blue lunchbox. She heard the brief shriek of rubber as the car accelerated. She turned her head and stared after it. She was a serious, earnest child, much given to silent observation. She kept her big dark eyes on the road until the dust settled. Then she turned back to matters in hand and inspected her lunch, and wished her mom had been home to pack it instead of the maid, who belonged to the Greers and was mean. "What happened a year and a half ago?" Reacher asked. She didn't answer. They were on a long, straight, deserted road with the sun just about dead center above them. Heading south and near noon, he figured. The road was made of patched blacktop, smooth enough, but the shoulders were ragged. There were lonely billboards at random intervals advertising gas and accommodations and markets many miles ahead. Either side of the road, the landscape was flat and parched and featureless, dotted here and there with still windmills in the middle distance. There were automobile engines mounted on concrete pads closer to the road, Big V8s, like you'd see under the hood of an ancient Chevrolet or Chrysler, painted yellow and streaked with rust, with stubby black exhaust pipes standing vertically.
Water pumps,
Carmen said.
for irrigating the fields. There was agriculture here in the old days. Back then, gasoline was cheaper than water, so those things ran all day and all night. Now there's no water left, and gas has gotten too expensive.
The land fell away on every side, covered with dry brush. On the far horizon southwest of the endless road, there might have been mountains 100 miles away. Or it might have been a trick of the heat.
Are you hungry?
She asked.
If we don't stop, we could pick Ellie up from school. And I'd really like to do that. I haven't seen her since yesterday.
Whatever you want, Reacher said. She accelerated until the big Cadillac was doing 80 and wallowing heavily over the undulations in the road. He straightened in his seat and tightened his belt against the reel. She glanced across at him.
Do you believe me yet?
She asked. He glanced back at her. He had spent 13 years as an investigator, and his natural instinct was to believe nothing at all. What happened a year and a half ago, he asked. Why'd he stop? She adjusted her grip on the wheel, opened her palms, stretched her fingers, closed them tight again on the rim.
He went to prison,
she said. For beating up on you?
In Texas?
She said. She laughed, just a yelp, like a short cry of pain.
Now I know you're new here.
He said nothing, just watched Texas reel in through the windshield ahead of him, hot and brassy and yellow.
It just doesn't happen,
she said.
In Texas, a gentleman would never raise his hand to a woman. Everybody knows that. Especially not a white gentleman whose family has been here over 100 years. So if a greaseball whore wife dared to claim a thing like that, they'd lock her up, probably in a rubber room.
The day her life changed forever. So what did he do?
He evaded federal taxes, she said. He made a lot of money trading oil leases and selling drilling equipment down in Mexico. He neglected to tell the IRS about it. In fact, he neglected to tell the IRS about anything. One day they caught him.
They put you in jail for that? She made a face.
Actually, they try hard not to. A first-time thing like that, they were willing to let him pay. You know, make proposals and so forth. A clean breast and a payback plan is what they're looking for. But Sloop was way too stubborn for that. He made them dig everything out for themselves. He was hiding things right up to the trial. He refused to pay anything. He even disputed that he owed them anything, which was ridiculous, and all the money was hidden behind family trusts, so they couldn't just take it. It made them mad, I think.
So they prosecuted. She nodded at the wheel.
With a vengeance, she said. A federal case. You know that expression, making a federal case out of something? Now I see why people say that. Biggest fuss you ever saw. A real contest. The local good old boys against the Treasury Department. Sloop's lawyer is his best friend from high school, and his other best friend from high school is the DA in Pecos County. And he was advising them on strategy and stuff like that. But the IRS just rolled right over all of them. It was a massacre. He got 3 to 5 years. The judge set the minimum at 30 months in jail and cut me a break.
Reacher said nothing. She accelerated past a truck, the first vehicle they'd seen in more than 20 miles.
I was so happy, she said. I'll never forget it. A white-collar thing like that? After the verdict came in, they just told him to present himself at the federal prison the next morning. They didn't drag him away in handcuffs or anything. He came home and packed a little suitcase. We had a big family meal, stayed up kind of late, went upstairs, and that was the last time he hit me. Next morning, his friends drove him up to the jail, someplace near Abilene. A club fed is what they call it. Minimum security. It's supposed to be comfortable. I heard you can play tennis there.
Do you visit him? She shook her head.
I pretend he's dead,
she said. She went quiet, and the car sped on toward the haze on the horizon. There were mountains visible to the southwest, unimaginably distant.
"The Transpicos," she said. "Watch for the light to change color. It's very beautiful."
He looked ahead, but the light was so bright it had no color at all.
"Minimum 30 months is 2.5 years, she said. "I thought it's safest to bet on the minimum. He's probably behaving himself in there."
Reacher nodded. Probably.
"So, 2.5 years,
she said.
"I wasted the first 1.5.
You've still got 12 months. That's plenty of time for anything. She was quiet again.
"Talk me through it," she said. "We have to agree on what needs to be done. That's important. That way, you're seeing it exactly the same way I am."
He said nothing.
"Help me," she said, "please. Just theoretically for now if you want."
He shrugged. Then he thought about it from her point of view. From his, it was too easy. Disappearing and living invisibly was second nature to him. You need to get away, he said. An abusive marriage, that's all a person can do, I guess. So, a place to live and an income, that's what you need.
Doesn't sound much when you say it.
Any big city, he said. They have shelters, all kinds of organizations.
What about Ellie?
The shelters have babysitters, he said. They'll look after her while you're working. There are lots of kids in those places. She'd have friends. After a little while, you could get a place of your own.
What job could I get?
Anything, he said. You can read and write. You went to college.
How do I get there?
On a plane, on a train, and a bus, 2 one-way tickets.
I don't have any money.
None at all? She shook her head.
What little I had ran out a week ago.
He looked away.
What?
She said. You dress pretty sharp for a person with no money.
Mail order,
she said.
I have to get approval from Sloop's lawyer. He signs the checks, so I've got clothes. But what I haven't got is cash.
He could sell the diamond.
I tried to, she said. It's a fake. He told me it was real, but it's stainless steel and cubic zirconium. The jeweler laughed at me. It's worth maybe $30.
He paused a beat. There must be money in the house, he said. You could steal some. She went quiet again, another fast mile south.
Then I'm a double fugitive, she said. You're forgetting about Ellie's legal status. And that's the whole problem. Always has been. Because she's Sloop's child, too. If I transport her across the state line without his consent, then I'm a kidnapper. They'll put her picture on milk cartons, and they'll find me, and they'll take her away from me, and I'll go to jail. They're very strict about it. Taking children out of a failed marriage is the #1 reason for kidnapping today. The lawyers all warn me. They all say I need Sloop's agreement. And I'm not going to get it, am I? How can I even go up there and ask him if he'd consent to me disappearing forever with his baby? Someplace he'll never find either of us.
So don't cross the state line. Stay in Texas. Go to Dallas.
I'm not staying in Texas,
she said. She said it with finality. Reacher said nothing back.
It's not easy, she said. His mother watches me on his behalf. That's why I didn't go ahead and sell the ring, even though I could have used the $30. She'd notice, and it would put her on her guard. She'd know what I'm planning. She's smart. So if one day money is missing and Ellie is missing, I might get a few hours' start before she calls the sheriff and the sheriff calls the FBI. But a few hours isn't too much help, because Texas is real big and buses are real slow. I wouldn't make it out.
Gotta be some way, he said. She glanced back at her briefcase on the rear seat, the legal paperwork.
There are lots of ways, she said. Procedures, provisions, wards of the court, all kinds of things. But lawyers are slow and very expensive, and I don't have any money. There are pro bono people who do it for free, but they're always very busy. It's a mess. A big, complicated mess.
I guess it is, he said.
But it should be possible in a year, she said. A year's a long time, right?
So?
So I need you to forgive me for wasting the first year and a half. I need you to understand why. It was all so daunting. I kept putting it off. I was safe. I said to myself, plenty of time to go. You just agreed 12 months is plenty of time for anything. So even if I was starting from cold, right now, I could be excused for that, right? Nobody could say I'd left it too late, could they?
There was a polite beep from somewhere deep inside the dashboard. A little orange light started flashing in the stylized shape of a gas pump right next to the speedometer.
Low fuel,
she said. There's Exxon up ahead, he said. I saw a billboard, maybe 15 miles.
I need mobile,
she said.
There's a card for mobile in the glove box. I don't have any way of paying it, Exxon.
You don't even have money for gas? She shook her head.
I ran out. Now I'm charging it all to my mother-in-law's mobile account. She won't get the bill for a month.
She steered one-handed and groped behind her for her pocketbook, dragged it forward and dumped it on his lap.
Check it out,
she said. He sat there with the bag on his knees. I can't be poking through a lady's pocketbook, he said.
I want you to,
she said.
I need you to understand.
He paused a beat and snapped it open, and a soft aroma came up at him. Perfume and makeup. There was a hairbrush, tangled with long black hairs, a nail clipper, and a thin wallet.
Check it out,
she said again. There was a worn dollar bill in the money section. That was all. A solitary buck. No credit cards. A Texas driver's license with a startled picture of her on it. There was a plastic window with a photograph of a little girl behind it. She was slightly chubby with perfect pink skin, shiny blonde hair and bright, lively eyes, a radiant smile filled with tiny square teeth.
Ellie,
she said. She's very cute.
She is, isn't she?
Where'd you sleep last night?
In the car,
she said.
Motels are $40.
Mine was nearer 20, he said. She shrugged.
Anything over $1, I haven't got it,
she said.
So it's the car for me. It's comfortable enough. Then I wait for the breakfast rush and wash up in some diner's restroom when they're too busy to notice.
What about eating?
I don't eat.
She was slowing down, maybe trying to preserve the rest of her gas. I'll pay for it, Reacher said. You're giving me a ride. There was another billboard on the right shoulder. Exxon, 10 miles.
Okay, she said. I'll let you pay. But only so I can get back to Ellie.
She accelerated again, confident the tank would last 10 miles. Less than a gallon, Reacher figured, even with a big old engine like that, even driving fast. He sat back and watched the horizon reel in. Then he suddenly realized what he should do. Stop the car, he said.
Why?
Just do it, okay? She glanced at him, puzzled, but she pulled over on the ragged shoulder, left it with 2 wheels on the blacktop, the engine running, the air blasting. Now wait, he said. They waited in the cold until the truck she had passed came through. Now sit still, he said. He unclipped his seatbelt and squinted down and tore the pocket off his shirt. Cheap material, weak stitching, it came away with no trouble at all. What are you wearing? He asked.
What? What are you doing?
Tell me exactly what you're wearing. She blushed, fidgeted nervously.
This dress,
she said.
And underwear, and shoes.
Show me your shoes. She paused a second, and then leaned down and worked her shoes off, passed them across to him one at a time. He checked them carefully. Nothing in them. He passed them back. Then he leaned forward and unbuttoned his shirt, took it off, passed it to her. I'm getting out now, he said. I'm going to turn my back. Take all your clothes off and put the shirt on. Leave your clothes on the seat and then get out too.
Why?
You want me to help you, just do it. All of them, okay? He got out of the car and walked away. Turned around and stared down the road back the way they had come. It was very hot. He could feel the sun burning the skin on his shoulders. Then he heard the car door open. He turned back and saw her climbing out, barefoot, wearing his shirt. It was huge on her. She was hopping from foot to foot because the road was burning her feet. You can keep your shoes, he called. She leaned in and picked them up and put them on. "Now walk away and wait," he called. She paused again and then moved 10 feet away. He stepped back to the car. Her clothes were neatly folded on her seat. He ignored them. Reached back and searched her pocketbook again, and then the briefcase. Nothing there. He turned back to the clothes and shook them out. They were warm from her body. The dress, a bra, underpants, nothing hidden in them. He laid them on the roof of the car and searched the rest of it. It took him 20 minutes. He covered it completely. Under the hood, the whole of the interior, under the carpets and the seats, under the seats, in the trunk, under the fenders, everywhere. He found nothing at all, and he was absolutely prepared to bet his life no civilian could conceal anything from him in an automobile. "Okay," he called. "Get dressed now, same routine." He waited with his back turned until he heard her behind him. She was holding his shirt. He took it from her and put it back on.
"What was that about?"
she asked. "Now I'll help you," he said, "because now I believe you."
"Why?"
"Because you really don't have any money," he said. "No credit cards either. Not in your wallet and not hidden anyplace else. And nobody travels 300 miles from home, not overnight, with absolutely no money. Not unless they got some real big problems. And a person with real big problems deserves some kind of help." She said nothing, just ducked her head slightly, like she was accepting a compliment, or offering one. They climbed back in the car and shut the doors, sat for a minute in the cool air, and then she maneuvered back onto the road again. "So, you got a year," he said. "That's plenty of time. A year from now, you could be 1,000,000 miles away. New start, new life. Is that what you want me for? To help you get away?" She said nothing for a couple of minutes, a couple of miles. The road rolled down a slight hill and then up again. There were buildings in the far distance, on the next crest. Probably the gas station. Maybe a tow truck operation next to it.
"Right now, just agree with me," she said. "A year is enough? So it's okay to have waited?"
"Sure," he said. "A year's enough. It's okay to have waited." She said nothing more, just drove straight ahead for the gas station like her life depended on it. The first establishment was a junkyard. There was a long, low shed made out of corrugated tin, with the front wall all covered with old hubcaps. Behind it was an acre of wrecked cars. They were piled 5 or 6 deep, with the older models at the bottom, like geological strata. Beyond the low shed was the turn for the gas station. It was old enough to have pumps with pointers instead of figures, and 4 public restrooms instead of 2. Old enough that a taciturn guy came out into the heat and filled your car for you. The Cadillac took more than 20 gallons, which cost Reacher the price of a motel room. He passed the bills through his window and waved away $1 and change. He figured the guy should have it. The outside temperature reading on the dash showed 111 degrees. No wonder the guy didn't talk. Then he found himself wondering whether it was because the guy didn't like to see a beaner driving a white man around in a Cadillac.
"Gracias, señor,"
Carmen said.
"Thank you."
"Pleasure," he said. "De nada, señorita."
"You speak Spanish?"
"Not really," he said. "I served all over, so I can say a few words in a lot of languages, but that's all. Except French. I speak French pretty well. My mother was French."
"From Louisiana or Canada?"
From Paris, France."
"So you're half foreign,"
she said. "Sometimes I feel a lot more than half." She smiled like she didn't believe him, and eased back to the road. The gas needle jumped up to F, which seemed to reassure her. She got the car straight in her lane and accelerated back to a cruise.
"But you should call me Señora,"
she said.
"not Señorita. I'm a married woman."
"Yes," he said. "I guess you are." She went quiet for a mile, settled back in the seat and rested both hands lightly on the bottom curve of the wheel. Then she took a deep breath.
"Okay, here's the problem," she said. "I don't have a year."
"Why not?"
"Because a month ago his lawyer friend came out to the house. Told us there was some kind of deal on the table.
What deal?
I don't know for sure. Nobody told me exactly. My guess is Sloop's gonna rat out some business associates in exchange for early remission. I think his other friend is brokering it through the DA's office.
Shit, Reacher said. Carmen nodded.
Yes, shit. They've all been working their asses off, getting it going. I've had to be all smiles like, oh, great, Sloop's coming home early.
Reacher said nothing.
But inside, I'm screaming,
she said.
I left it too late, you see? A year and a half, I did nothing at all. I thought I was safe. I was wrong. I was stupid. I was sitting around in a trap without knowing it, and now it's sprung shut, and I'm still in it.
Reacher nodded slowly. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. That was his guiding principle. So what's the progress on the deal, he asked. The car sped on south.
It's done,
she said in a small voice. So when does he get out?
Today's Friday,
she said.
I don't think they can do it at the weekend, so it'll be Monday, I expect. A couple of days is all.
I see, Reacher said.
So I'm scared, she said. He's coming home.
I see, Reacher said again.
Do you?
She asked. He said nothing.
Monday night,
she said.
He's going to start it all up again. It's going to be worse than ever.
Maybe he's changed, Reacher said. Prison can change people. It was a useless thing to say. He could see it in her face. And in his experience, prison didn't change people for the better.
No, it's going to be worse than ever, she said. I know it. I know it for sure. I'm in big trouble, Reacher. I can promise you that.
Something in her voice. Why? She moved her hands on the wheel, closed her eyes tight, even though she was doing 70 miles an hour.
Because it was me who told the IRS about him,
she said. The Crown Victoria drove south and then west and then looped back north in a giant sweeping curve. It detoured over near the highway so it could fill up with gas at a self-service pump in a busy station. The driver used a stolen Amex card in the slot and then wiped his prints off it and dropped it in the trash next to the pump, with the empty oil bottles and the soda cans and the used paper towels covered with windshield dirt. The woman busied herself with a map and selected their next destination, kept her finger on the spot until the driver got back in and squirmed round to take a look at it. Now? He asked.
Just to check it out, she replied. For later. It seemed like such a good plan, Carmen said. It seemed foolproof. I knew how stubborn he was and how greedy he was, so I knew he wouldn't cooperate with them. So I knew he would go to jail, at least for a little while. Even if by some chance he didn't, I thought it might preoccupy him for a spell. And I thought it might shake some money loose for me, you know, when he was hiding it all. And it worked real well, apart from the money. But that seemed like such a small thing at the time.
How did you do it?
I just called them. They're in the book. They have a whole section to take information from spouses. It's one of their big ways to get people. Normally it happens during divorces, when you're mad at each other. But I was already mad at him.
Why haven't you gone ahead and got a divorce, he asked. Husband in jail's grounds, right? Some kind of desertion? She glanced in the mirror, at the briefcase on the rear seat.
It doesn't solve the problem with Ellie, she said. In fact, it makes it much worse. It alerts everybody to the possibility I'll leave the state. Legally, Sloop could require me to register her whereabouts, and I'm sure he would.
You could stay in Texas, he said again. She nodded.
I know, she said. But I can't. I just can't. I know I'm being irrational, but I can't stay here, Reacher. It's a beautiful state, and there are nice people here, and it's very big, so I could get a long way away, but it's a symbol. Things have happened to me here that I have to get away from. Not just with Sloop.
He shrugged. Your call, he said. She went quiet and concentrated on driving. The road reeled in. It was dropping down off a wide, flat mesa that looked the size of Rhode Island.
The Cap Rock, she said, is limestone or something. All the water evaporated about 1 million years ago and left the rock behind. Geological deposits or something.
She sounded vague. Her tour guide explanation was less definitive than usual. So what do you want me to do? He asked.
I don't know,
she said, although he was certain that she did. Help you run? I could do that, probably. She said nothing. You picked me out, he said. You must have had something in mind. She said nothing. He fell to thinking about the potential target group she'd outlined to him. Out-of-work rodeo riders and roughnecks, men of various talents, but he wasn't sure if beating a federal manhunt would be among them. So she had chosen well. Or lucked out. You need to move fast, he said. 2 days, you need to get started right now. We should pick Ellie up and turn the car around and get going. Vegas, maybe, for the first stop.
And do what there?
Pick up some ID, he said. Place like Vegas, we could find something, even if it's only temporary. I've got some money. I can get more if you need it.
I can't take your money, she said. That wouldn't be fair.
Fair or not, you're going to need money. You can pay me back later. Then maybe you should go back to L.A. You could start building some new paperwork there. She was quiet again, another mile.
No, I can't run, she said. I can't be a fugitive. I can't be an illegal. Whatever else I am, I've never been an illegal. I'm not going to start being one now. And neither is Ellie. She deserves better than that.
You both deserve better than that, he said. But you got to do something.
I'm a citizen, she said. Think about what that means to a person like me. I'm not going to give it up. I'm not going to pretend to be somebody else.
So what's your plan?
You're my plan,
she said. Bull riders, roughnecks. A 6'5", 250-pound ex-military cop. You want me to be your bodyguard? He asked. She made no reply. Carmen, I'm sorry about your situation, he said. Believe me, I really am. No response. But I can't be your bodyguard. No reply. I can't be, he said, again. It's ridiculous. What do you think's going to happen? You think I'm going to be with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, making sure he doesn't hit you? No reply. A huge highway interchange sprawled across the empty landscape miles away in the haze. It's ridiculous, he said again. Well, I could warn him off, I guess. I could scare him. I could smack him around a little to back up the message. But what happens when I'm gone? Because sooner or later I'm going to be gone, Carmen. I'm not going to stay around. I don't like to stay anywhere. And it's not just me. Face it, nobody's going to stay around. Not long enough. Not 10 years or 20 or 30 or however long it is until he ups and dies of old age. No reply. No effect either. It wasn't like what he was saying was a big disappointment to her. She just listened and drove, fast and smooth and silent, like she was biding her time. The highway cloverleaf grew larger and nearer, and she swooped onto it and around it and headed due west, following a big green sign which said Pecos, 75 miles.
I don't want a bodyguard, she said. I agree. That would be ridiculous.
So what am I supposed to be for? She settled onto the highway, center lane, driving faster than before. He watched her face. It was completely blank. What am I supposed to be for? He asked again. She hesitated.
I can't say it.
Say what? She opened her mouth, closed it again, swallowed hard, and said nothing. He stared at her. Bull riders, roughnecks, an ex-MP, Clay Allison's grave, the fancy inscription, the obituary in the Kansas City newspaper. You are crazy, he said.
Am I?
The spots of color came back to her face, the size of quarters, burning red high above her cheekbones. "Totally crazy," he said, "and you can forget about it."
I can't forget about it.
He said nothing.
I want him dead, Reacher, she said. I really do. It's my only way out, literally. And he deserves it.
"Tell me you're kidding."
I'm not kidding, she said. I want him killed.
He shook his head, stared out of the window. "Just forget all about it," he said. "It's absurd. This isn't the Wild West anymore."
Isn't it? Isn't it still okay to kill a man who needs killing?
Then she went quiet, just driving, like she was waiting him out. He stared at the speeding landscape in front of him. They were heading for the distant mountains. The blazing afternoon sun made them red and purple. It changed the color of the air. The Trans-Pecos, she'd called them.
Please, Reacher,
she said.
Please. At least think about it.
He said nothing. Please? Think about it? He was beyond reaction. He dropped his eyes from the mountains and watched the highway. It was busy with traffic, a river of cars and trucks crawling across the vastness. She was passing them all, one after another, driving way too fast.
I'm not crazy, she said. Please. I tried to do this right. I really did. Soon as his lawyer told me about the deal, I saw a lawyer of my own, and then 3 more, and none of them could do anything for me as fast as a month. All they could do was tell me Ellie traps me exactly where I am. So then I looked for protection. I asked private detectives. They wouldn't do anything for me. I went to a security firm in Austin, and they said yes, they could guard me around the clock, but it would be 6 men and nearly $10,000 a week, which is the same thing as saying no. So I tried, Reacher. I tried to do it right, but it's impossible.
He said nothing.
So I bought a gun,
she said. Wonderful, he said.
And bullets,
she said.
It took all the cash I had.
You picked the wrong guy, he said.
But why? You've killed people before, in the army. You told me that.
This is different.
How?
This would be murder. Cold-blooded murder. It would be an assassination.
No, it would be just the same, just like the army.
He shook his head. Carmen, it wouldn't be the same.
Don't you take an oath or something to protect people?
It's not the same, he said again. She passed an 18-wheeler bound for the coast, and the Cadillac rocked and shimmied through the superheated, turbulent air. Slow down, he said. She shook her head.
I can't slow down. I want to see Ellie.
He touched the dashboard in front of him, steadying himself. The freezing air from the vents blasted against his chest.
Don't worry, she said. I'm not going to crash. Ellie needs me. If it wasn't for Ellie, I'd have crashed a long time ago, believe me.
But she eased off a little anyway. The big rig crept back alongside.
I know this is a difficult conversation, she said.
You think?
But you have to look at it from my point of view. Please, Reacher. I've been through it 1,000,000 times. I've thought it through. I've been from A to B to C to D all the way to Z. Then again, and again, and again. I've examined all the options. So this is all logical to me. And this is the only way. I know that. But it's hard to talk about because it's new to you. You haven't thought about it before. It comes out of the blue. So I sound crazy and cold-blooded to you. I know that. I appreciate that. But I'm not crazy or cold-blooded. It's just that I've had the time to reach the conclusion and you haven't. And this is the only conclusion. I promise you.
I'm not killing a guy I never saw before.
He hits me, Reacher, Carmen said. He beats me, badly, punches me, kicks me, hurts me. He enjoys it. He laughs while he does it. I live in fear all the time.
So go to the cops.
The cop. There's only one. And he wouldn't believe me. And even if he did, he wouldn't do anything about it. They're all big buddies. You don't know how it is here.
Reacher said nothing.
He's coming home, she said. Can you imagine What he's going to do to me?
He said nothing.
I'm trapped, Reacher. I'm boxed in because of Ellie. Do you see that?
He said nothing.
Why won't you help me? Is it the money? Is it because I can't pay you?
He said nothing.
I'm desperate,
She said.
You're my only chance. I'm begging you. Why won't you do it? Is it because I'm Mexican?
He said nothing.
It's because I'm just a greaseball, right? A beaner? You'd do it for a white woman like your girlfriend? I bet she's a white woman, probably a blonde, right?
Yes, she's a blonde, he said.
Some guy was beating up on her, you'd kill him.
Yes, I would, he thought.
And she ran off to Europe without you. Didn't want you to go with her. But you do it for her and you won't do it for me.
It's not the same, he said for the third time.
I know, she said, because I'm just beaner trash. I'm not worth it.
He said nothing.
What's her name? She asked. Your girlfriend.
Jody, he said.
Okay. Imagine Jody over there in Europe. She's trapped in some bad situation, getting beat up every day by some maniac sadist. She tells you about it, bares her soul, every horrible, humiliating detail. What are you going to do?
Kill him, he thought. She nodded like she could read his mind.
But you won't do that for me. You'd do it for the gringa, but not for me.
He paused a beat with his mouth halfway open. It was true. He would do it for Jody Garber, but he wouldn't do it for Carmen Greer. Why not? Because it comes in a rush. You can't force it. It's a hot-blooded thing, like a drug in your veins, and you go with it. If it's not there, you can't go with it. Simple as that. He'd gone with it before in his life, many times. People mess with him, they get what they get. They mess with Jody. That's the same thing as messing with him. Because Jody was him. Or at least she used to be. In a way that Carmen wasn't. And never would be. So it just wasn't there. It's not about gringas or Latinas, he said quietly. She said nothing. Please, Carmen, he said. You need to understand that.
So what is it about?
It's about I know her and I don't know you.
And that makes a difference?
Of course it does.
Then get to know me, she said. We've got 2 days. You're about to meet my daughter. Get to know us.
He said nothing. She drove on. Pico's 55 miles.
You were a policeman, she said. You should want to help people. Or are you scared? Is that it? Are you a coward?
He said nothing.
You could do it, she said. You've done it before. So you know how. You could do it and get clean away. You could dump his body where nobody would find it, out in the desert. Nobody would ever know. It wouldn't come back on you, if you were careful. You'd never get caught. You're smart enough.
He said nothing.
Are you smart enough? Do you know how? Do you?
Of course I know how, he said, but I won't do it.
Why not?
I told you why not, because I'm not an assassin.
But I'm desperate, she said. I need you to do this. I'm begging you. I'll do anything if you'll help me.
He said nothing.
What do you want, Reacher? You want sex? We could do that.
Stop the car, he said.
Why?
Because I've had enough of this. She jammed her foot down hard on the gas. The car leapt forward. He glanced back at the traffic and leaned over toward her and knocked the transmission into N. The engine unloaded and screamed, and the car coasted and slowed. He used his left hand on the wheel and hauled it around against her desperate grip and steered the car over to the shoulder. It bounced off the blacktop and the gravel bit against the tires and the speed washed away. He jammed the lever into P and opened his door all in one movement. The car skidded to a stop with the transmission locked. He slid out and stood up unsteadily, felt the heat on his body like a blow from a hammer, and slammed the door and walked away from her. He was sweating heavily 20 yards after getting out of the car, and already regretting his decision. He was in the middle of nowhere, on foot on a major highway, and the slowest vehicles were doing 60. Nobody was going to want to stop for him. Even if they did want to, give them a little reaction time, give them a little time to check their mirrors, a little braking time. They'd be more than a mile away before they knew it, and then they'd shrug their shoulders and speed up again and keep on going. Dumb place to hitch a ride, they'd think. It was worse than dumb. It was suicidal. The sun was fearsome, and the temperature was easily 112 degrees. The slipstream from the cars was like a hot gale, and the suction from the giant trucks wasn't far from pulling him off his feet. He had no water. He could barely breathe. There was a constant stream of people 5 yards away, but he was as alone as if he was stumbling blind through the desert. If a state trooper didn't come by and arrest him for jaywalking, he could die out there. He turned and saw the Cadillac still sitting inert on the shoulder, but he kept on walking away from it. He made it about 50 yards and stopped, turned to face east and stuck out his thumb. But it was hopeless, like he knew it would be. After 5 minutes, 100 vehicles, the nearest thing he'd gotten to a response was some trucker blasting his air horn, a huge bass sound roaring past him with a whine of stressed tires and a hurricane of dust and grit. He was choking and burning up. He turned again, saw the Cadillac lurch backward and start up the shoulder toward him. Her steering was imprecise. The rear end was all over the place. It was close to slewing out into the traffic. He started walking back to it. It came on to meet him, fishtailing wildly. He started running. He stopped alongside the car as she braked hard. The suspension bounced. She buzzed the passenger window down.
"I'm sorry,"
she said. He didn't hear it in the noise, but he caught the shape of the words.
"Get in,"
she said. His shirt was sticking to his back. He had grit in his eyes. The howl of sound from the road was deafening him.
"Get in,"
she mouthed.
"I'm sorry."
He got in. It felt exactly the same as the first time. The air roaring, the freezing leather seat, the small, cowed woman at the wheel.
"I apologize," she said. "I'm sorry. I said stupid things."
He slammed the door. There was sudden silence. He put his hand in the chill stream from the vents.
"I didn't mean them,"
she said. "Whatever," he said back.
"Really, I didn't mean them. I'm just so desperate I can't tell right from wrong anymore. And I'm very sorry for the thing about the sex. It was a crass thing to say."
Then her voice went small.
"It's just that some of the guys I've picked up, I figured that's what it was going to have to be."
"You'd have sex with them so they'd kill your husband?" She nodded.
"I told you. I'm trapped. And I'm scared. And I'm desperate. And I don't have anything else to offer."
He said nothing.
"And I've seen movies where that happens,"
she said. He nodded back. "I've seen those movies too," he said. "They never get away with it." She paused a long moment.
"So you're not going to do it?"
she said, like a statement of fact. "No, I'm not," he said. She paused again, longer.
"Okay. I'll let you out in Picos," she said. "You can't be out there walking. You could die in a heat like this."
He paused, too, much longer than she had. Then he shook his head, because he had to be somewhere. When you live on the road, you learn pretty quick that any one place is about as good as any other place. "No, I'll come with you," he said. "I'll hang out a couple of days, because I'm sorry about your situation, Carmen. I really am. Just because I won't walk in and shoot the guy doesn't mean I don't want to help you some other way, if I can. You still want me to, that is." She paused another beat.
"Yes, I still want you to,"
she said. "And I want to meet Ellie. She looks like a great kid from her picture."
"She is a great kid."
"But I'm not going to murder her father." She said nothing. "Is that completely clear?" he asked. She nodded.
"I understand,"
she said.
"I'm sorry I asked."
"It's not just me, Carmen," he said. "Nobody'd do it. You were fooling yourself. It wasn't a good plan." She looked small and lost.
"I thought nobody could refuse," she said, "if they knew."
She turned and watched the traffic coming up behind her, waited for a gap. 6 cars later, she pulled back onto the highway and gunned the motor. Within a minute, she was doing 80 again, passing one car after another. The trucker, who had used his air horn as he left Reacher in the dust, lasted 7 whole minutes before she reeled him in. The Crown Victoria made it to the destination the woman had selected within 80 minutes. It was an inch-wide empty brown stain on the map, and it was a 40-mile-wide empty brown stain in reality. One road ran through it, meandering roughly north and east in the lee of the distant mountains. Hot, lonely, valueless country. But it had all the features she had predicted. It would serve her purposes. She smiled to herself. She had an instinct for terrain.
"Okay," she said. "First thing tomorrow. Right here."
The big car turned and headed back south. The dust from its tires hung in the air for long minutes and then floated down to the powdery ground. Carmen came off the highway just short of Pecos and speared south on a small county road which led down into total emptiness. Within 5 miles, they could have been on the surface of the moon. "Tell me about Echo," he said. She shrugged.
"What's to tell? It's nothing. When they were first mapping Texas 100 years ago, the Census Bureau called a place settled if it had more than 6 people to the square mile, and we still don't qualify. We're still the frontier."
"But it's very beautiful," he said. And it was. The road was snaking and diving through endless contours with red rock canyons either side of it, tall and noble to the east, fractured and pierced to the west, where ancient streams had sought the banks of the Rio Grande. Tall, dry mountains reared beyond, with an immense technicolor sky above, and even in the speeding car he could sense the stunning silence of thousands of square miles of absolute emptiness.
"I hate it,"
she said. "Where will I be?" he asked.
"On the property. In the bunkhouse, I guess. They'll hire you for the horses. We're always a man short. You show up with a pulse, they'll be interested. You can say you're a wrangler. It'll be a good disguise. It'll keep you close by."
"I don't know anything about horses." She shrugged.
"Maybe they won't notice. They don't notice much. Like me getting beaten half to death."
An hour later, they were tight for time. She was driving fast enough that the tire squeal from the curves was more or less continuous. They came up a long, steep grade and then turned out between 2 rock pillars on a peak, and suddenly there was flat land below them as far as the eye could see. The road fell away like a twisted tan ribbon and was crossed 20 miles ahead by another, just visible through the haze like a faint line on a map. The distant crossroads was studded with a handful of tiny buildings, and apart from them and the 2 roads, there was no evidence humans had ever lived on the planet.
"Echo County," she said. "Everything you see, and a lot more besides. 1,000 square miles, and 150 people. Well, 148, because one of them is sitting right here with you, and one of them is still in jail."
Her mood had improved because she said it with a wry smile, but she was looking at a tiny plume of dust on the road far below them. It was puffing out like a squirrel's tail, crawling slowly south, a quarter of the way to the crossroads.
"That must be the school bus," she said. "We have to beat it to town, or Ellie will get on and we'll miss her."
"Town?" Reacher said. She smiled again briefly.
"You're looking at it," she said. "Uptown Echo."
She accelerated down the grade, and the Cadillac's own dust swirled and hung behind it. The landscape was so vast that speed seemed slowed to absurdity. Reacher figured the bus might be a half hour from the crossroads, and the Cadillac was traveling twice as fast, so they should catch it inside 15 minutes, even though the elevation and the clear desert air made it look close enough to reach out and touch, like a child's toy on the floor of a room.
"It's good of you to be coming," she said. "Thank you. I mean it."
"No I decay, senorita," he said.
"So you do know more than a few words."
He shrugged. There were a lot of Spanish-speaking people in the Army. Most of the new generation, in fact. Some of the best of them.
Like baseball?
She said. Yes, he said. Like baseball.
But you should call me Senora. Senorita makes me too happy.
She accelerated again when the road leveled out, and about a mile before they caught up with the bus, she swung out into the wrong lane, ready to pass it. Safe enough, he figured. The chances of meeting oncoming traffic in that part of the world were worse than winning the lottery. She reeled in the bus and pulled through the cone of dust and blasted past, and stayed on the left for another mile. Then she eased back right, and 5 minutes later, they were slowing as they approached the crossroads. From ground level, the hamlet looked ragged and defeated, the way small places do under the heat of the sun. There were lots partially overrun with dry thorny weeds, delineated with raw block walls, commercially zoned but never developed. There was a diner on the right on the northwest corner, nothing more than a long low shack made of wood with all the color baked right out of it. Diagonally opposite it was the school, a one-room building like something out of a history book. The beginnings of rural education. Opposite that, on the southwest corner, was a gas station with 2 pumps and a small yard filled with stalled cars behind it. Diagonally opposite the gas station and across the road from the school, the northeast corner was an empty lot, with concrete blocks spilled randomly across it, like an optimistic new venture had been planned and then abandoned. Maybe while LBJ was still in office. There were 4 other buildings, all 1 story, all plain concrete, all set back with thin, rough driveways leading to them from the road. Houses, Reacher guessed. Their yards were littered with junk, children's bikes and tired automobiles on blocks, and old living room furniture. The yards were baked dry and hard and had low chicken wire fences around them, maybe to keep the big snakes out. The crossroads itself had no stop signs, just thick lines on the blacktop, melted in the heat. Carmen drove straight through and past the school, and U-turned across the full width of the road, bumping down into shallow drainage ditches on both shoulders. She came back and stopped with the school gate close to Reacher's window. The schoolyard was ringed by a wire hurricane fence like a dog pound, and the gate was an inexact hinged rectangle made of galvanized tubing and faced with the same wire. She stared past him at the school door. The bus came laboring down from the north and stopped on its own side of the road, parallel to the Cadillac, facing the other direction. The schoolhouse door opened and a woman stepped out. She moved slow and looked tired. The teacher, Reacher guessed, ready to end her day. She saw the bus and waved to the children. They spilled out in a long stream, 17 of them, 9 girls and 8 boys, he counted. Ellie Greer was 7th in line. She was wearing a blue dress. She looked damp and hot. He recognized her from the photograph, and by the way Carmen moved beside him. He heard her catch her breath and scrabble for the door handle. She skipped around the hood and met her daughter outside the car on the beaten earth strip that passed for a sidewalk. She scooped her up in a wild hug, spun her round and round. Her little feet windmilled outward, and her blue lunchbox swung and hit her mother on the back. Reacher could see the child laughing, and tears in Carmen's eyes. They came back around the rear of the car, clutched tight together. Carmen opened the door, and Ellie scrambled straight into the driver's seat and stopped dead when she saw him. She went instantly silent, and her eyes went wide.
"This is Mr. Reacher,"
Carmen said. Ellie turned to look at her.
"He's my friend," Carmen said. "Say hello to him."
Ellie turned back.
"Hello,"
she said. "Hey, Ellie," Reacher said. "School okay?" Ellie paused.
"It was okay."
"Learn anything?"
"How to spell some words."
She paused again and then tilted her chin upward a fraction.
"Not easy ones," she said. "Ball and fall."
Reacher nodded gravely. 4 letters, he said. That's pretty tough.
"I bet you can spell them."
B-A-L-L, Reacher said. F-A-L-L. Like that, right?
"You're grown up,"
Ellie said, like he had passed a test.
"But you know what? The teacher said 4 letters, but there's only 3 because the L comes twice right there at the end."
"Well, you're a smart kid," Reacher said. "Now hop in the back and let your mom in out of the heat." She scrambled past his left shoulder, and he caught the smell of elementary school. He had attended maybe 15 different places, most of them in different countries and continents, and they all smelled the same. It was more than 30 years since he'd last been in one, but he still remembered it clearly.
"Mom?"
Ellie said. Carmen slid in and shut the door. She looked flushed. Heat, sudden exertion, sudden brief happiness. Reacher didn't know.
"Mom, it's hot," Ellie said. "We should get ice cream sodas from the diner."
Reacher saw Carmen about to smile and agree, and then he saw her glance back at her pocketbook and remember the lone dollar stashed inside it.
"From the diner, Mom," Ellie said. "Ice cream sodas. They're best when it's hot, before we go home."
Carmen's face fell, and then it fell a little farther when she caught up to the end of Ellie's sentence. Home. Reacher stepped into the silence. "Good idea," he said. "Let's get ice cream sodas. My treat." Carmen glanced across, dependent on him and unhappy about it. But she put the car in drive anyway and pulled back through the crossroads and turned left into the diner's lot. She came around and parked in the shade tight against its north wall, right next to the only other car in the place, a steel blue Crown Victoria, new and shiny. Must be a state trooper's unmarked, or maybe a rental, Reacher thought. The diner was cold inside, chilled by a big old-fashioned air conditioner that vented down through the roof. And it was empty, apart from a group Reacher took to be the Crown Victoria's occupants, a trio of ordinary indoor types at a window, 2 men and a woman. The woman was medium blonde and pleasant-looking. One guy was small and dark, and the other was taller and fair. So the Crown Vic was a rental, not a cop car, and these guys were maybe some kind of a sales team heading between San Antonio and El Paso. Maybe they had heavy samples in the trunk which prevented them from flying. He glanced away and let Ellie lead him toward a booth at the opposite end of the room.
"This is the best table," she said. "All the others have torn seats, and they've sewed them up, and the thread is kind of thick, and it can hurt the back of your leg."
"I guess you've been in here before," Reacher said.
"Of course I have."
She giggled like he was crazy. Rows of tiny square teeth flashed at him.
"I've been in here lots of times."
Then she jumped up and scooted sideways over the vinyl.
"Mommy, sit next to me," she said.
Carmen smiled.
"I'm going to use the restroom first. I'll be right back. You stay here with Mr. Reacher, okay?"
The kid nodded gravely, and Mr. Reacher sat himself down opposite her, and they looked at each other quite openly. He wasn't sure what she was seeing, but he was seeing a living version of the photograph from her mother's wallet. Thick, corn-colored hair tied back in a ponytail, incongruous dark eyes wide open and staring at him rather than at the camera's lens, a little snub of a nose, a serious mouth closed in a rather earnest way. Her skin was impossibly perfect, like pink, damp velvet.
"Where'd you go to school?" she asked. "Did you go here too?"
"No, I went to lots of different places," he said. "I moved around."
"You didn't go to the same school all the time?"
He shook his head. "Every few months, I went to a new one." She concentrated hard. Didn't ask why. Just examined the proposition for its benefits and drawbacks.
"How could you remember where everything was? Like the bathrooms. You might forget who the teacher was. You might call her by the wrong name."
He shook his head again. "When you're young, you can remember stuff pretty well. It's when you get old that you start to forget things."
"I forget things," she said. "I forgot what my daddy looks like. He's in prison, but I think he's coming home soon."
"Yes, I think he is."
"Where did you go to school when you were 6.5 like me?"
School. The center of her universe. He thought about it. When he was 6.5, the war in Vietnam was still well below its peak, but it was already big enough for his father to be there or thereabouts at the time. So he figured that year would have been split between Guam and Manila. Manila, mostly, he thought, judging by his memories of the buildings and the vegetation, the places he hid out in and played around. "The Philippines," he said.
"Is that in Texas too?" she asked.
"No, it's a bunch of islands between the Pacific and the South China Sea, right out in the ocean, a long way from here."
"The ocean,"
she said, like she wasn't sure.
"Is the ocean in America?"
"Is there a map on the wall in your school?"
"Yes, there is. A map of the whole world."
"Okay. The oceans are all the blue parts.
There's a lot of blue parts.
He nodded. That's for sure.
My mom went to school in California.
Well, that'll be on the map, too. Find Texas and look to the left. He saw her looking down at her hands, trying to remember which was left and which was right. Then he saw her look up beyond his shoulder, and he turned to see Carmen on her way back, trapped temporarily by the salespeople getting up out of their booth. She waited until they had moved to the door and cleared the aisle, and then she skipped back and sat down, all in one graceful movement. She pressed close to Ellie and hugged her one-armed and tickled her and got a squeal in exchange. The waitress finished with the salespeople at the register and walked over, pad and pencil at the ready.
3 Coke floats, please,
Ellie said, loud and clear. The waitress wrote it down. Coming right up, honey, she said, and walked away.
Is that okay for you?
Carmen asked. Reacher nodded. Like the smell of elementary school, he remembered the taste of a Coke float. He'd had his first ever in a PX canteen in Berlin, in a long, low Quonset hut left over from the Four Powers occupation. It had been a warm summer's day in Europe, no air conditioning, and he remembered the heat on his skin and the bubbles in his nose.
It's silly,
Ellie said.
It's not the Coke that floats, it's the ice cream that floats in the Coke. They should call them ice cream floats.
Reacher smiled. He recalled thinking the same sorts of things when he was her age. Outraged puzzlement at the illogicalities of the world he was being asked to join. Like elementary school, he said. I found out that elementary means easy, so elementary school means easy school. I remember thinking, well, it seems pretty hard to me. Hard school would be a better name. Ellie looked at him seriously.
I don't think it's hard,
she said.
But maybe it's harder in the ocean.
Or maybe you're smarter than me. She thought about it, earnestly.
I'm smarter than some people,
she said.
Like Peggy. She's still on 3-letter words. And she thinks you spell zoo with a Z.
Reacher had no answer to that. He waited for Carmen to pick it up, but before she could, the waitress arrived back with a tin tray with 3 tall glasses on it. She put them on the table with great ceremony and whispered, "Enjoy," to Ellie, and backed away. But the glasses were almost a foot tall, and the drinking straws added another 6 inches, and Ellie's chin was about level with the tabletop, so her mouth was a long way from where it needed to be.
You want me to hold it down? Carmen asked her. Or do you want to kneel up?
Ellie thought about it. Reacher was starting to wonder if this kid ever made a quick, easy decision. He saw a little of himself in her. He'd taken things too seriously. The kids in every new school had made fun of him for it, but usually only once.
I'll kneel up,
she said. It was more than kneeling. She stood on the vinyl bench in a kind of crouch with her hands planted palms down on the table around the base of the glass and her head ducked to the straw. As good a method as any, Reacher figured. She started sucking her drink, and he turned to look at his own. The ice cream was a round, greasy spoonful. He found the cola way too sweet, like it was mixed from syrup in the wrong proportions. The bubbles were huge and artificial. It tasted awful. A long way from a childhood summer's day in Germany.
Don't you like it?
Ellie asked. Her mouth was full, and she sprayed a little of the mixture onto his sleeve. I didn't say anything.
You're making a funny face.
Too sweet, he said. It'll rot my teeth. Yours, too. She came up with a huge grimace, like she was showing her teeth to a dentist.
Doesn't matter, she said. They're all going to fall out anyway. Peggy's got 2 out already.
Then she bent back to her straw and vacuumed up the rest of the drink. She poked at the sludge in the bottom of the glass with her straw until it was liquid enough to suck.
I'll finish yours too if you want, she said. No, her mother said back. You'll throw up in the car. I won't, I promise. No, Carmen said again. Now go to the bathroom, okay? It's a long way home. I went already, Ellie said. We always go at school last thing. We line up. We have to. The bus driver hates it if we pee on the seats.
Then she laughed delightedly. Ellie, her mother said.
Sorry, Mommy.
But it's only the boys who do that. I wouldn't do it.
Go again anyway, okay?
Ellie rolled her eyes theatrically and clambered over her mother's lap and ran to the back of the diner. Reacher put a 5 over the check. Great kid, he said.
I think so,
Carmen said.
Well, most of the time.
Smart as anything. She nodded.
Smarter than me, that's for sure.
He let that one go, too. Just sat in silence and watched her eyes cloud over.
Thanks for the sodas,
she said. He shrugged. My pleasure. And a new experience. I don't think I've ever bought a soda for a kid before.
So you don't have any of your own, obviously.
Never even got close.
No nieces or nephews? No little cousins?
He shook his head. I was a kid myself, he said. Once upon a time and a long time ago. Apart from what I remember about that, I don't know too much about it.
Stick around a day or two, and Ellie will teach you more than you ever wanted to know, as you've probably guessed.
Then she looked beyond his shoulder, and he heard Ellie's footsteps behind him. The floor was old, and there were obviously air pockets trapped under the buckled linoleum, because her shoes made hollow slapping sounds.
Mom, let's go, she said.
Mr. Reacher is coming too,
Carmen said.
He's going to work with the horses.
He got up out of the booth and saw her watching him.
Okay, she said, but let's go.
They pushed outside into the heat. Past the middle of the afternoon, and it was hotter than ever. The Crown Victoria was gone. They walked around to the Cadillac, and Ellie climbed through to the back seat. Carmen sat for a long moment with her hand resting on the key. She closed her eyes, then she opened them again and started the engine. She drove back through the crossroads and past the school again, and then more than 60 miles straight south. She went pretty slowly, maybe half the speed she'd used before. Ellie didn't complain. Reacher guessed she thought this was normal. He guessed Carmen never drove very fast on her way home. They didn't pass much. There were power lines looping rhythmically between weather poles on the left shoulder. There were windmills and oil pumps here and there in the distance, some of them working, most of them seized up and still. There were more V8 irrigation rigs on the western side of the road, on the edges of old fields, but they were silent and rusted because the winds had scoured the earth shallow. Some places it was cleaned right back to dry caliche ledges. Nothing much left to irrigate. The eastern side was better. There were whole square miles of mesquite, and sometimes broad patches of decent grassland, running in irregular linear shapes, like there must be water underground. Every 10 or 12 miles there'd be a ranch gate standing isolated by the side of the road. They were simple right-angle shapes, maybe 15 feet wide, maybe 15 feet high, with beaten earth tracks running through them into the distance. Some of them had names on them, made up from strips of wood nailed into the shapes of letters. Some of them had the names formed from iron, worked by hand into fancy script. Some of them had old bleached cattle skulls fixed centrally, with long horns curving outward like vultures' wings. Some of them were supplemented by old barbed wire strands running aimlessly into the middle distance, sketching the location of ancient boundaries. The wire was on wooden posts, and the posts were weathered and twisted into corkscrew shapes, and looked as if they would turn to dust if you touched them. Some of the ranch houses were visible, depending on the contours of the land. Where it was flat, Reacher could see clusters of buildings in the far distance. The houses were 2-story, mostly painted white, crouching among huddles of low barns and sheds. They had windmills out back and satellite dishes, and they looked quiet and stunned in the heat. The sun was getting low in the west, and the outside temperature was still showing 110.
It's the road, I think,
Carmen said.
It soaks up the sun all day and gives it back later.
Ellie had fallen asleep, sprawled across the rear seat. Her head was pillowed on the briefcase. Her cheek was touching the edges of the papers that outlined how her mother could best escape her father.
Greer property starts here,
Carmen said.
On the left. Next track is ours, about 8 miles.
It was flat land, rising slightly on the right to a fragmented mesa about a mile away to the west. On the left, the Greers had better barbed wire than most. It looked like it might have been restrung less than 50 years ago. It ran reasonably straight into the east, enclosing patchy grassland that showed about equal parts green and brown. Miles away, there was a forest of oil derricks visible against the skyline, all surrounded by tin huts and abandoned equipment.
Greer 3,
Carmen said.
big field. It made Sloop's grandfather a lot of money way back. Ran dry about 40 years ago. But it's a famous family story about that gusher coming in. Most exciting thing that ever happened to them.
She slowed a little more, clearly reluctant to make the final few miles. In the far distance, the road rose into the boiling haze, and Reacher could see the barbed wire change to an absurd picket fence. It was tight against the shoulder, like something you'd see in New England, but it was painted dull red. It ran about half a mile to a ranch gate, which was also painted red, and then ran on again into the distance and out of sight. There were buildings behind the gate, much closer to the road than the ones he'd seen before. There was a big old house with a 2-story core and a tall chimney and sprawling 1-story additions. There were low barns and sheds clustered loosely around it. There was ranch fencing enclosing arbitrary squares of territory. Everything was painted dull red, all the buildings and all the fences alike. The low orange sun blazed against them and made them glow and shimmer and split horizontally into bands of mirage. She slowed still more where the red fence started, coasted the last 100 yards with her foot off the gas, and then turned in on a beaten dirt track running under the gate. There was a name on the gate, high above their heads, red-painted wood on red-painted wood. It said, Red House. She glanced up at it as she passed through.
Welcome to hell,
she said. The Red House itself was the main building in a compound of 4 impressive structures. It had a wide planked porch with wooden columns and a swinging seat hung from chains, and beyond it, 80 yards farther on, was a motor barn, but she couldn't drive down to it because a police cruiser was parked at an angle on the track, completely blocking her way. It was an old model Chevy Caprice, painted black and white, with Echo County Sheriff on the door, where it had said something else before. Bought by the county second-hand, Reacher thought, maybe from Dallas or Houston, repainted and refurbished for easy duty out here in the sticks. It was empty, and the driver's door was standing open. The light bar on the roof was flashing red and blue, whipping colors horizontally over the porch and the whole front of the house.
What's this about?
Carmen said. Then her hand went up to her mouth.
God, he can't be home already, she said. Please, no.
Cops wouldn't bring him home, Reacher said. They don't run a limo service. Ellie was waking up behind them. No more hum from the engine, no more rocking from the springs. She struggled upright and gazed out, eyes wide.
What's that?
She said.
It's the sheriff,
Carmen said.
Why is he here?
Ellie asked.
I don't know.
Why are the lights flashing?
I don't know.
Did somebody call 911? Maybe there's been a burglar. Maybe he wore a mask and stole something.
She crawled through and knelt on the padded armrest between the front seats. Reacher caught the school smell again and saw delighted curiosity in her face. Then he saw it change to extreme panic.
Maybe he stole a horse, she said. Maybe my pony, Mommy.
She scrambled across Carmen's lap and scrabbled at the door handle, jumped out of the car and ran across the yard as fast as her legs would carry her, her arms held stiff by her sides and her ponytail bouncing behind her.
I don't think anybody stole a horse, Carmen said. I think Sloop's come home.
With the lights flashing, Reacher said. She unclipped her seatbelt and swiveled sideways and placed her feet on the dirt of the yard, stood up and stared toward the house, with her hands on the top of the door frame, like the door was shielding her from something. Reacher did the same on his side. The fierce heat wrapped around him. He could hear bursts of radio chatter coming from the sheriff's car. Maybe they're looking for you, he said. You've been away overnight. Maybe they reported you missing. Across the Cadillac's roof, she shook her head.
Ellie was here, and as long as they know where she is, they don't care where I am.
She stood still for a moment longer, and then she took a sideways step and eased the door shut behind her. Reacher did the same. 20 feet away, the house door opened, and a uniformed man stepped out onto the porch. The sheriff, obviously. He was about 60 and overweight, with dark tan skin and thin gray hair plastered to his head. He was walking half backward, taking his leave of the gloom inside. He had black pants and a white uniform shirt with epaulettes and embroidered patches on the shoulders. A wide gun belt with a wooden-handled revolver secured into a holster with a leather strap. The door closed behind him, and he turned toward his cruiser and stopped short when he saw Carmen, touched his forefinger to his brow in a lazy imitation of a salute. "Miss Greer," he said, like he was suggesting something was her fault.
"What happened?"
she asked.
"Folks inside'll tell you," the sheriff said. "Too damn hot for me to be repeating everything twice."
Then his gaze skipped the roof of the Cadillac and settled on Reacher.
"And who are you?"
he asked. Reacher said nothing.
"Who are you?"
the guy said again. "I'll tell the folks inside," Reacher replied. "Too damn hot for me to be repeating everything twice." The guy gave him a long, calm look and finished with a slow nod of his head, like he'd seen it all before. He dumped himself inside his second-hand cruiser and fired it up and backed out to the road. Reacher let his dust settle on his shoes and watched Carmen drive the Cadillac down the track to the motor barn. It was a long, low farm shed with no front wall, and it was painted red, like everything else. There were 2 pickups and a Jeep Cherokee in it. One of the pickups was recent, and the other was sitting on flat tires and looked like it hadn't been moved in a decade. Beyond the building, a narrow dirt track looped off into the infinite desert distance. Carmen eased the Cadillac in next to the Jeep and walked back out into the sun. She looked small and out of place in the yard, like an orchid in a trash pile. "So where's the bunkhouse?" he asked.
"Stay with me,"
she said.
"You need to meet them anyway. You need to get hired. You can't just show up in the bunkhouse."
"Okay," he said. She led him slowly to the bottom of the porch steps. She took them cautiously, one at a time. She arrived in front of the door and knocked.
"You have to knock?"
Reacher asked. She nodded.
"They never gave me a key,"
she said. They waited, with Reacher a step behind her, appropriate for the hired help. He could hear footsteps inside. Then the door swung open. A guy was standing there holding the inside handle. He looked to be in his middle 20s. He had a big square face with the skin blotched red and white. He was bulky, with frat boy muscle turning to fat. He was wearing denim jeans and a dirty white t-shirt with the sleeves rolled tight over what was left of his biceps. He smelled of sweat and beer. He was wearing a red baseball cap backward on his head. A semicircle of forehead showed above the plastic strap. At the back, a shock of hair spilled out under the peak, exactly the same color and texture as Ellie's. "It's you," he said, glancing at Carmen, glancing away.
"Bobby,"
she said. Then his glance settled on Reacher. "Who's your friend?"
"His name is Reacher. He's looking for work."
The guy paused. "Well, come on in, I guess," he said. "Both of you. And close the door, it's hot." He turned back into the gloom, and Reacher saw the letter T on the ball cap. Texas Rangers, he thought. Good ball club, but not good enough. Carmen followed the guy 3 steps behind, entering her home of nearly 7 years like an invited guest. Reacher stayed close to her shoulder.
"Sloop's brother,"
she whispered to him. He nodded. The hallway was dark inside. He could see the red paint continued everywhere, over the wooden walls, the floors, the ceilings. Most places it was worn thin or worn away completely, just leaving traces of pigment behind like a stain. There was an ancient air conditioner running somewhere in the house, forcing the temperature down maybe a couple of degrees. It ran slowly, with a patient drone and rattle. It sounded peaceful, like the slow tick of a clock. The hallway was the size of a motel suite, filled with expensive stuff, but it was all old, like they'd run out of money decades ago. Or else they'd always had so much that the thrill of spending it had worn off a generation ago. There was a huge mirror on one wall, with the ornate frame painted red. Opposite it was a rack filled with 6 bolt-action hunting rifles, The mirror reflected the rack and made the hallway seem full of guns.
What did the sheriff want?
Carmen called. Come inside, Bobby called back. We are inside, Reacher thought. But then he saw he meant come into the parlor. It was a big red room at the back of the house. It had been remodeled. It must have been a kitchen once. It opened out through the original wall of the house to a replacement kitchen easily 50 years old. The parlor had the same worn paint everywhere, including all over the furniture. There was a big farmhouse table and 8 wheelback chairs, all made out of pine, all painted red, all worn back to shiny wood where human contact had been made. One of the chairs was occupied by a woman. She looked to be somewhere in her middle 50s. She was the sort of person who still dresses the same way she always did, despite her advancing age. She was wearing tight jeans with a belt and a blouse with a western fringe. She had a young woman's hairstyle, colored a bright shade of orange and teased up off her scalp above a thin face. She looked like a 20-year-old prematurely aged by some rare medical condition. Or by a shock. Maybe the sheriff had sat her down and given her some awkward news. She looked preoccupied and a little confused. But she showed a measure of vitality, too. A measure of authority. There was still vigor there. She looked like the part of Texas she owned, rangy and powerful, but temporarily laid low, with most of her good days behind her.
What did the sheriff want?
Carmen asked again. Something happened, the woman said, and her tone meant it wasn't something good. Reacher saw a flicker of hope behind Carmen's eyes. Then the room went quiet, and the woman turned to look in his direction.
His name is Reacher,
Carmen said.
He's looking for work.
Where's he from? Her voice was like rawhide. I'm the boss here, it said.
I found him on the road,
Carmen answered. What can he do?
He's worked with horses before. He can do blacksmithing.
Reacher looked out of the window while she lied about his skills. He'd never been closer to a horse than walking past the ceremonial stables on the older army bases that still had them. He knew in principle that a blacksmith made horseshoes, which were iron things horses had nailed to their feet, or their hoofs. Hooves? He knew there was a charcoal brazier involved, and a bellows, and a great deal of rhythmic hammering. An anvil was required, and a trough of water. But he'd never actually touched a horseshoe. He'd seen them occasionally, nailed up over doors as a superstition. He knew some cultures nailed them upward and some downward, all to achieve the same good luck. But that was all he knew about them. We'll talk about him later, the woman said. Other things to talk about first. Then she remembered her manners and sketched a wave across the table. I'm Rusty Greer, she said. Like the ball player? Reacher asked. I was Rusty Greer before he was born, the woman said. Then she pointed at Bobby. You already met my boy Robert Greer. Welcome to Red House Ranch, Mr. Reacher. Maybe we can find you work, if you're willing and honest.
What did the sheriff want?
Carmen asked her for the 3rd time. Rusty Greer turned and looked straight at her. Sloop's lawyer's gone missing, she said.
What?
He was on his way to the federal jail to see Sloop. Never got there. State police found his car abandoned on the road south of Abilene. Just sitting there empty, miles from anywhere. Key's still in it. Situation doesn't look good.
Al Eugene?
How many lawyers you think Sloop had? Her tone added, you idiot. The room went totally silent, and Carmen went pale, and her hand jumped to her mouth, fingers rigid and extended, covering her lips.
Maybe the car broke down,
she said. Cops tried it, Rusty said. Worked just fine.
So where is he?
He's gone missing, I just told you that.
Have they looked for him?
Of course they have. They can't find him. Carmen took a deep breath, then another.
Does it change anything?
She asked. You mean the Sloop's still coming home? Carmen nodded weakly, like she was terribly afraid of the answer. Don't you worry none, Rusty said. She was smiling. Sloop will be back here Monday, just like he always was gonna be. Al going missing doesn't change a thing. Sheriff made that clear. It was a done deal. Carmen paused a long moment with her eyes closed and her hand on her lips. Then she forced the hand down and forced the lips into a trembling smile.
Well, good,
she said. Yes, good. her mother-in-law said. Carmen nodded vaguely. Reacher thought she was about to faint.
What do you suppose happened to him?
She asked.
How would I know? Some sort of trouble, I expect.
But who would make trouble for Al?
Rusty's smile thinned to a sneer.
Well, take your best guess, dear, she said.
Carmen opened her eyes.
What does that mean?
It means who would want to make trouble for their lawyer.
I don't know.
Well, I do, Rusty said. Somebody who buys him a big old Mercedes-Benz and gets sent to jail anyhow, that's who.
Well, who did that?
Anybody could have. Al Eugene takes anybody for a client. He has no standards. He's halfway to being plain crooked. Maybe all the way crooked for all I know. 3/4 of his clients are the wrong sort.
Carmen was still pale.
The wrong sort?
You know what I mean.
You mean Mexican? Why don't you just come right out and say it?
Rusty was still smiling.
Well, tell me different, she said. Some Mexican boy gets sent to jail, he doesn't just stand up and accept his punishment like we do. No, he blames his lawyer, and he gets all his brothers and his cousins all riled up about it, and of course he's got plenty of those come up here after him, all illegals, all cholos, all of them in gangs, and now you see exactly how that turns out. Just like it is down there in Mexico itself. You of all people should know what it's like.
Why should I, of all people? I've never even been to Mexico.
Nobody replied to that. Reacher watched her, standing up, shaken and proud and alone like a prisoner in the enemy camp. The room was quiet, just the thump and click of the old air conditioner running somewhere else.
You got an opinion here, Mr. Reacher?
Rusty Greer asked. It felt like a left-field question in a job interview. He wished he could think of something smart to say, some diversion. But it wouldn't help any to start some big clumsy fight and get himself thrown off the property inside the first 10 minutes. "I'm just here to work, ma'am," he said.
I'd like to know your opinion all the same.
Just like a job interview, a character reference. Clearly, she wanted exactly the right sort of person shoveling horseshit for her.
Mr. Reacher was a cop himself,
Carmen said.
in the army.
Rusty nodded.
So what you thinking, ex-army cop?
Reacher shrugged. Maybe there's an innocent explanation. Maybe he had a nervous breakdown and wandered off.
Doesn't sound very likely. Now I see why they made you an ex-cop.
Silence for a long moment. Well, if there was trouble, maybe white folks made it, Reacher said.
That's not going to be popular view around here, son.
It's not looking to be popular. It's looking to be right or wrong. And the population of Texas is 3/4 white, therefore I figure there's a 3 in 4 chance white folks were involved, assuming people are all the same as each other.
That's a big assumption.
Not in my experience. Rusty bounced her gaze off the tabletop back to Carmen.
Well, no doubt you agree, she said, with your new friend here.
Carmen took a breath.
I never claimed to be better than anyone else, she said, so I don't see why I should agree I'm worse.
The room stayed quiet.
Well, time will tell, I guess, Rusty said. One or other of us is going to be eating humble pie.
She said it, pie. The long syllable trailed into silence.
Now where's Sloop's little girl?
She asked with an artificial brightness in her voice, like the conversation had never happened.
You bring her back from school?
Carmen swallowed and turned to face her.
She's in the barn, I think. She saw the sheriff and got worried her pony had been stolen.
That's ridiculous. Who'd steal her damn pony?
She's only a child,
Carmen said.
Well, maid's ready to give the child its supper, so take it to the kitchen. Show Mr. Reacher the bunkhouse on your way.
Carmen just nodded, like a servant with new instructions. Reacher followed her out of the parlor and back to the hallway. They went outside into the heat again and paused in the shadows on the porch. Ellie eats in the kitchen? Reacher asked. Carmen nodded.
Rusty hates her,
she said. Why? She's her granddaughter. Carmen looked away.
Her blood is tainted,
she said.
Don't ask me to explain it. It's not rational. She hates her is all I know.
So why all the fuss if you took her away?
Because Sloop wants her here. She's his weapon against me, his instrument of torture. And his mother does what he wants.
She make you eat in the kitchen, too?
No, she makes me eat with her,
she said.
Because she knows I'd rather not.
He paused at the edge of the shadow. You should have gotten out of here, he said. We should be in Vegas by now.
I was hopeful for a second,
she said.
About Al Eugene? I thought there might be a delay.
He nodded. So was I. It would have been useful. She nodded, tears in her eyes.
I know,
she said.
Too good to be true.
So you should still think about running. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, shook her head.
I won't run,
she said.
I won't be a fugitive.
He said nothing.
And you should have agreed with her,
she said.
About the Mexicans? I'd have understood you were bluffing. I need her to keep you around.
I couldn't.
It was a risk.
She led him down the steps into the sun and across the yard. Beyond the motor barn was a horse barn. That structure was red like everything else, big as an aircraft hangar, with clerestory vents in the roof. There was a big door standing a foot open. There was a strong smell coming out of it. I'm not much of a country guy, he said.
You'll get used to it,
she said. Behind the barn were 4 corrals boxed in with red fences. 2 of them were covered in scrubby grass, and 2 of them had desert sand piled a foot thick. There were striped poles resting on oil drums to make jumping courses. Behind the corrals was another red building, long and low, with small windows high up under the eaves.
The bunkhouse,
she said. She stood still for a moment, lost in thought. Then she shivered in the heat and came back, all business.
The door is round the other side, she said. You'll find 2 guys in there, Joshua and Billy. Don't trust either one of them. They've been here forever, and they belong to the Greers. The maid will bring your meals down to you in about an hour, after Ellie eats, before we do.
Okay, he said.
And Bobby will come down to check you out sooner or later. Watch him carefully, Reacher, because he's a snake.
Okay, he said again.
I'll see you later,
she said. You gonna be all right? She nodded once and walked away. He watched her until she was behind the horse barn, and then he walked around and found the door into the bunkhouse. The boy filled a whole new page in his notebook. The men with the telescopes called out descriptions and the exact sequence of events. The arrival of the sheriff, the return of the beaner and the kid with the new guy in tow, the kid running off to the barn, the sheriff leaving, the beaner and the new guy entering the house, a long period of nothing doing, the emergence of the beaner and the new guy onto the porch, their walk together down toward the bunkhouse, her return alone.
Who is he?
The boy asked. How should we know? One of the men replied. Very tall, heavy, not neatly dressed, shirt and pants. Can't tell how old, the boy wrote. Then he added, Not a wrangler, wrong shoes. Trouble? The grade fell away behind the bunkhouse and made it a 2-story building. The lower floor had huge sliding doors frozen open on broken tracks. There was another pickup in there and a couple of green tractors. At the far end to the right was a wooden staircase without a handrail leading upward through a rectangular hole in the ceiling. Reacher spent a minute on the ground floor looking at the vehicles. The pickup had a gun rack in the rear window. The air was hot and heavy and smelled of gasoline and motor oil. Then he used the staircase and came out on the second level. All the interior carpentry was painted red, walls, floor, and roof beams alike. The air was hotter still up there, and stale. No air conditioning and not much ventilation. There was a closed-off area at the far end, which he guessed was the bathroom. Apart from that, the whole of the floor was one big open space, with 16 beds facing each other 8 to a side, with simple iron frames and thin striped mattresses and bedside cabinets and footlockers. The 2 beds nearest the bathroom were occupied. Each had a small, wiry man lying half-dressed on top of the sheets. Both men wore blue jeans and fancy tooled boots, and no shirts. Both had their hands folded behind their heads. They both turned toward the staircase as Reacher stepped up inside the room. They both unlaced their nearer arms to get a better look at him. Reacher had done 4 years at West Point, and then 13 years in the service, so he had a total 17 years' experience of walking into a new dormitory and being stared at by its occupants. It wasn't a sensation that bothered him. There was a technique involved in handling it, an etiquette. The way to do it was to just walk in, select an unoccupied bed, and say absolutely nothing at all. Make somebody else speak first. That way, you could judge their disposition before you were forced to reveal your own. He walked to a bed 2 places away from the head of the staircase against the north wall, which he judged would be cooler than the south. In the past, in the Army, he would have had a heavy canvas kit bag to dump on the bed as a symbol of possession. The kit bag would be stenciled with his name and his rank, and the number of re-stencilings on it would offer a rough guide to his biography. Kit bags saved a lot of talking time. But the best he could do in this new situation was take his folding toothbrush from his pocket and prop it on the bedside cabinet. As a substitute gesture, it lacked physical impact, but it made the same point. It said, "I live here now, same as you do. You got any kind of a comment to make about that?" Both men kept on staring at him, saying nothing. Lying down, it was hard to judge their physiques with any degree of certainty, but they were both small, maybe 5, 6, or 7 each, maybe 150 pounds. But they were wiry and muscular, like middleweight boxers. They had farmers' tans, deep brown on their arms and their faces and their necks, and milky white where T-shirts had covered their bodies. They had random knobs and old swellings here and there on their ribs and arms and collarbones. Reacher had seen marks like that before. Carmen had one. He had 1 or 2 himself. They were where old fractures had set and healed. He walked past the 2 men to the bathroom. It had a door, but it was a communal facility inside. 4 of everything with no interior partitioning. 4 toilets, 4 sinks, 4 shower heads, and a single elongated stall. It was reasonably clean, and it smelled of warm water and cheap soap, like the 2 guys had recently showered, maybe ready for Friday evening off. There was a high window with a clogged insect screen and no glass. By standing tall, he could see past the corner of the horse barn all the way up to the house. He could see half of the porch and a sliver of the front door. He came back into the dormitory room. One of the guys had hauled himself upright and was sitting with his head turned, watching the bathroom door. His back was as pale as his front, and it had more healed fractures showing through the skin. The ribs, the right scapula. Either this guy spent a lot of time getting run over by trucks, or else he was a retired rodeo rider who had passed his career a little ways from the top of his trade.
"Storm coming,"
the guy said. "What I heard," Reacher said.
"Inevitable with a temperature like this."
Reacher said nothing.
"You hired on?"
the guy asked. "I guess," Reacher said.
"So you'll be working for us?"
Reacher said nothing.
"I'm Billy,"
the guy said. The other guy moved up on his elbows. "Josh," he said. Reacher nodded to them both. "I'm Reacher," he said. "Pleased to meet you."
"You'll do the scut work for us," the guy called Billy said. "Shoveling shit and toting bales."
"Whatever."
"Because you sure don't look like much of a horse rider to me."
"I don't?" Billy shook his head.
"Too tall, too heavy, center of gravity way up there. No, my guess is you're not much of a horse rider at all." "The Mexican woman bring you in?"
Josh asked. "Mrs. Greer," Reacher said.
"Mrs. Greer's rusty," Billy said. "She didn't bring you in."
"Mrs. Carmen Greer," Reacher said. Billy said nothing. The guy called Josh just smiled.
"We're heading out after supper," Billy said. "Bar, couple hours south of here. You could join us. Call it a get-to-know-you type of thing."
Reacher shook his head. "Maybe some other time, when I've earned something. I like to pay my own way situation like that." Billy thought about it and nodded.
"That's a righteous attitude," he said. "Maybe you'll fit right in."
The guy called Josh just smiled. Reacher walked back to his bed and stretched himself out, keeping still, fighting the heat. He stared up at the red-painted rafters for a minute, and then he closed his eyes. The maid brought supper 40 minutes later. She was a middle-aged white woman who could have been a relative of Billy's. She greeted him with familiarity. Maybe a cousin. Certainly she looked a little like him, sounded like him. The same genes in there somewhere. She greeted Josh with ease and Reacher himself with coolness. Supper was a pail of pork and beans, which she served into metal bowls with a ladle taken from her apron pocket. She handed out forks and spoons and empty metal cups.
"Water in the bathroom faucet,"
she said for Reacher's benefit. Then she went back down the stairs, and Reacher turned his attention to the food. It was the first he'd seen all day. He sat on his bed with the bowl on his knees and ate with a spoon. The beans were dark and soupy and mixed with a generous spoonful of molasses. The pork was tender and the fat was crisp. It must have been fried separately and mixed with the beans afterwards.
"Hey, Reacher," Billy called over. "So what do you think?"
"Good enough for me," he said.
"Bullshit," Josh said. "More'n 100 degrees all day, and she brings us hot food. I showered already, and now I'm sweating like a pig again."
"It's free," Billy said.
"Bullshit, it's free," Josh said back. "It's a part of our wages."
Reacher ignored them. Bitching about the food was a staple of dormitory life. And this food wasn't bad. Better than some he'd eaten. Better than what came out of most barracks cookhouses. He dumped his empty bowl on the cabinet next to his toothbrush and lay back down and felt his stomach go to work on the sugars and the fats. Across the room, Billy and Josh finished up and wiped their mouths with their forearms and took clean shirts out of their footlockers, shrugged them on and buttoned them on the run, and combed through their hair with their fingertips. "See you later," Billy called. They clattered down the stairs, and a moment later Reacher heard the sound of a gasoline engine starting up directly below. The pickup, he guessed. He heard it back out through the doors and drive away. He stepped into the bathroom and saw it come round the corner and wind around the horse barn and bounce across the yard past the house. Reacher walked back through the dormitory and piled the 3 used bowls on top of each other, with the silverware in the topmost. Threaded the 3 mug handles onto his forefinger, and walked down the stairs and outside. The sun was nearly below the horizon, but the heat hadn't backed off at all. The air was impossibly hot, almost suffocating. And it was getting humid. A warm, damp breeze was coming in from somewhere. He walked up past the corrals, past the barn, through the yard. He skirted around the porch and looked for the kitchen door. Found it and knocked. The maid opened up. "I brought these back," he said. He held up the bowls and the mugs.
"Well, that's kind of you," she said, "but I'd have come for them."
"Long walk," he said. "Hot night." She nodded.
"I appreciate it," she said. "You had enough?"
"Plenty," he said. "It was very good." She shrugged, a little bashful.
"Just cowboy food."
She took the used dishes from him and carried them inside.
"Thanks again,"
she called. It sounded like a dismissal, so he turned away and walked out to the road, with the low sun full on his face. He stopped under the wooden arch. Ahead of him, to the west, was nothing at all, just the empty, eroded mesa he'd seen on the way in. On the right, to the north, was a road 60 miles long with a few buildings at the end of it. A neighbor 15 miles away. On the left, to the south, he had no idea. A bar 2 hours away, Billy had said. Could be 100 miles. He turned around. To the east, Greer land for a stretch, and then somebody else's, and then somebody else's again, he guessed. Dry holes and dusty Kalish, and nothing much more all the way back to Austin, 400 miles away. New guy comes to gate and stares right at us, the boy wrote, then looks all around. Knows we're here? Trouble? He closed his book again and pressed himself tighter to the ground.
"Reacher,"
a voice called. Reacher squinted right and saw Bobby Greer in the shadows on the porch. He was sitting in the swing seat. Same denims, same dirty t-shirt, same backward ball cap. "Come here," he called. Reacher paused a beat. Then he walked back past the kitchen and stopped at the bottom of the porch steps.
"I want a horse,"
Bobby said. "The big mare. Saddle her up and bring her out." Reacher paused again. "You want that now?"
"When do you think? I want an evening ride."
Reacher said nothing.
"And we need a demonstration,"
Bobby said. "Of what?"
"You want to hire on, you need to show us you know what you're doing."
Reacher paused again, longer. "Okay," he said.
5 minutes,
Bobby said. He stood up and headed back inside the house, closed the door. Reacher stood for a moment with the heat on his back, and then headed down to the barn, headed for the big door, the one with the bad smell coming out of it. A demonstration? You're in deep shit now, he thought. More ways than one. There was a light switch inside the door, in a metal box screwed to the siding. He flicked it on, and weak yellow bulbs lit the enormous space. The floor was beaten earth, and there was dirty straw everywhere. The center of the barn was divided into horse stalls back to back, with a perimeter track lined with floor-to-ceiling hay bales inside the outer walls. He circled around the stalls. A total of 5 were occupied. 5 horses. They were all tethered to the walls of their stalls with complicated rope constructions that fitted neatly over their heads. He took a closer look at each of them. One of them was very small, a pony, Ellie's presumably. Okay, strike that. 4 to go. 2 were slightly bigger than the other 2. He bent down low and peered upward at them one at a time. In principle, he knew what a mare should look like underneath. Should be easy enough to spot one. But in practice, it wasn't easy. The stalls were dark, and the tails obscured the details. In the end, he decided the first one he looked at wasn't a mare. Wasn't a stallion either. Some parts were missing. A gelding. Try the next. He shuffled along and looked at the next. Okay, that's a mare. Good. The next one was a mare, too. The last one, another gelding. He stepped back to where he could see both of the mares at once. They were huge, shiny brown animals, huffing through their noses, moving slightly, making dull clop sounds with their feet on the straw. No, their hoofs. Hooves. Their necks were turned so they could watch him with one eye each. Which one was bigger? The one on the left, he decided. A little taller, a little heavier, a little wider in the shoulders. Okay, that's the big mare. So far, so good. Now, the saddle. Each stall had a kind of thick post coming horizontally out of the outside wall right next to the gate with a whole bunch of equipment piled on it. A saddle, for sure, but also a lot of complicated straps and blankets and metal items. The straps are the reins, he guessed. The metal thing must be the bit. It goes in the horse's mouth, the bit between her teeth, right? He lifted the saddle off the post. It was very heavy. He carried it balanced on his left forearm. Felt good. Just like a regular cowboy. Roy Rogers, eat your heart out. He stood in front of the stall gate. The big mare watched him with one eye. Her lips folded back like thick rolls of rubber, showing big square teeth underneath. They were yellow. Okay. Think. First principles. Teeth like that. This thing is not a carnivore. It's not a biting animal. Well, it might try to nick you a little, but it's not a lion or a tiger. It eats grass. It's a herbivore. Herbivores are generally timid, like antelope or wildebeests out there on the sweeping plains of Africa. So this thing's defense mechanism is to run away, not to attack. It gets scared, it runs. But it's a pack animal, too. So it's looking for a leader. It will submit to a show of authority. So be firm, but don't scare it. He opened the gate. The horse moved. Its ears went back and its head went up, then down, up and down against the rope. It moved its back feet and swung its huge rear end toward him. "Hey," he said, loud and clear and firm. It kept on coming. He touched it on the side. It kept on coming. Don't get behind it. Don't let it kick you. That much he knew. What was the phrase? Like being kicked by a horse? Had to mean something. "Stand still," he said. It was swinging sideways toward him. He met its flank with his right shoulder, gave it a good solid shove like he was aiming to bust down a door. The horse quieted, stood still, huffing gently. He smiled. I'm the boss, okay? He put the back of his right hand up near its nose. It was something he'd seen at the movies. You rub the back of your hand on its nose and it gets to know you. Some smell thing. The skin on its nose felt soft and dry. Its breath was strong and hot. Its lips peeled back again and its tongue came out. It was huge and wet. Okay. Good girl, he whispered. He lifted the saddle two-handed and dumped it down on her back. Pushed and pulled at it until it felt solid. It wasn't easy. Was it the right way round? Had to be. It was shaped a little like a chair. There was a definite front and a back. There were broad straps hanging down on either side. Two long, two short. Two had buckles, two had holes. What were they for? To hold the saddle on, presumably. You bring the far ones around and buckle them at the side, up underneath where the rider's thigh would be. He ducked down and tried to grab the far straps underneath the horse's belly. He could barely reach them. This was one wide animal, that was for damn sure. He stretched and caught the end of one strap in his fingertips, and the saddle slipped sideways. Shit, he breathed. He straightened up and leveled the saddle again, ducked down and grabbed for the far straps. The horse moved and put them way out of his reach. Shit, he said again. He stepped closer, crowding the horse against the wall. It didn't like that, and it leaned on him. He weighed 250 pounds. The horse weighed half a ton. He staggered backward. The saddle slipped. The horse stopped moving. He straightened the saddle again and kept his right hand on it while he groped for the straps with his left.
Not like that,
a voice called from way above him. He spun round and looked up. Ellie was lying on top of the stack of hay bales up near the roof, her chin on her hands, looking down at him.
You need the blanket first, she said.
What blanket?
The saddlecloth,
she said. The horse moved again, crowding hard against him. He shoved it back. Its head came around and it looked at him. He looked back at it. It had huge dark eyes, long eyelashes. He glared at it. I'm not afraid of you, pal. Stand still or I'll shove you again. Ellie, does anybody know you're in here? He called. She shook her head solemnly.
I'm hiding, she said. I'm good at hiding.
But does anybody know you hide in here?
I think my mommy knows I do sometimes, but the Greers don't.
You know how to do this horse stuff?
Of course I do. I can do my pony all by myself.
So help me out here, will you? Come and do this one for me.
It's easy,
she said. Just show me, okay? She stayed still for a second, making her usual lengthy decision, and then she scrambled down the pile of bales and jumped to the ground and joined him in the stall.
Take the saddle off again,
she said. She took a cloth off the equipment post and shook it out and threw it up over the mare's back. She was too short, and Reacher had to straighten it one-handed.
Now put the saddle on it, she said.
He dropped the saddle on top of it. Ellie ducked underneath the horse's belly and caught the straps. She barely needed to stoop. She threaded the ends together and pulled.
You do it, she said. They're stiff.
He lined the buckles up and pulled hard.
Not too tight, Ellie said. Not yet. Wait for her to swell up.